Okay, so the time is 5:04. Would like to call the Monday, August 3rd, 2020 Sonora City Council meeting. We had no closed session, so we are now calling the meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance. Mayor Pro Tem Plummer, can you do the pledge for us, please?
And you're on mute, Mayor Pro Tem Plummer.
Not any longer. So, I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for
which it
which is
stands, one
one nation,
indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Get situated again here. Okay, roll call, please. Mary Rose.
Mayor Hawkins,
Here?
Mayor Pro Tem Plummer,
Here,
Councilmember Such,
Here, sorry.
Councilmember Garaventa,
Here.
and Councilmember Sagerstrom. All here for you, Mayor.
Excellent. City Clerk's report on posting of the agenda.
The agenda was posted on Thursday, July 30th at 3:30 p.m.
Excellent, thank you. Approval of the agenda. I believe there's one thing we were going to move.
Yes.
Which,
Mr. Mayor, if
was-
we could move the unfinished business item H to after new business.
excellent.
That way we would have public hearings and then go right into new business.
Anything else that the council would like to move or hold till next time? Okay, excellent. Okay, item number D is presentations. I believe the first one goes to our police chief, introduction of a police officer, Michael Paulson.
And Doug or Hannah, I need hosting capabilities before Chief Vanderwill gets going.
Hannah, send him over to you.
Oh, no, not Chief Vanderwill. It's me, Mary Rose Ruticonga needs to be host. Hannah. Or does the chief now need to make me host? Chief, can you make me host?
Sure, if you tell me how to do that.
Right click on Mary Rose's name and then you can click make host.
Right click and then make host. That sounds easy enough.
It always does. It's the
All
execution.
right,
All right, good. Yay.
I am host
Yeah.
now. So I'm gonna share my screen. So if you want to go ahead, Chief, and then as soon as we get going on the video for you.
Okay, we'll hold the video till I'm done here. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Honorable Council. As Chief of Police, I'm proud to introduce our newest police officer, Michael Paulson. As Council is aware, it's a long process to begin work as a police officer. We tested to fill this position in May of 2019. Michael was selected from the list to move forward and has since completed all the pre-employment screening, as well as the attending the San Joaquin Delta Academy, which he graduated in March 20th of this year. After that, he immediately began a 16 weeks field training program, which he completed. Michael was born and raised in the Bay Area. He moved to Orange County in 2002 to finish high school. And after that, he joined the U.S. Navy as a military police officer, and that was in 2007. When he finished his tour of duty in 2015, he attended the University of Wyoming, graduating with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. He moved to Sonora in September of 2019 when he began a police academy sponsored by the city of Sonora. Michael's been visiting the area because he has family here all of his life, and he always enjoyed Sonora, he says. He told me he feels honored for the opportunity to work for such a great department, and he looks forward to becoming a valued and contributing member of the community. Without further ado, we will play the pre-recorded oath of office, and you will see at some point in here near the end that Cindy, Michael's mother, is pinning the badge.
So we're doing it. We're doing it via video for COVID social distancing. Obviously, we can't have Officer Paulson come in and do the badge pinning in front of the public as we normally do. And just so the public is aware, we did measure, there is 6 feet of distance in this video between the chief and Officer Paulson. Can everybody see the video?
Yeah.
I can see it on mine.
But I can't hear it.
Yeah, I can't hear it either. Yeah.
Is it not hearing?
Yeah, but we
Oh,
get the
shoot.
gist, I think.
Oh, great.
Cool.
So sorry that you guys couldn't hear. But we congratulate Officer Paulson.
Yay.
Yes. And also want to say to Officer Paulson, thank you for your service to our country.
I second that.
Okay, item number D2, recognition of Mr. Denny Moore's donation of a new flag for City Hall.
So I don't know if Mr. Moore is on with us. Let me look real fast. If you are on, Mr. Moore, I don't know if you could raise your hand in the raise your hand feature, but we wanted to bring this forward to the council for recognition. Mr. Moore donated a new flag for City Hall. As you know, our flag waves over City Hall, over Washington Street. And so we wanted to be able to recognize him here in front of the council. We are grateful for his donation of the flag. And thank you very much. And I'm sorry if Mr. Moore is not on the call, but I just wanted to make sure that the council were aware that he did donate a new flag for City Hall.
I love a brand new, beautiful American flag. Okay, item number D3, recognition of Megan Bressel's Eagle Scout Service Project. Mary Rose.
So I'm going to allow Rochelle to talk a little bit about this. And then once she's done, we have a couple of pictures that we would like to share with the council in regards to Megan's project. So go ahead, Rochelle.
Thank you. Yeah, tonight we'd like to thank very much and recognize Megan for her great project that she did for the city. I kind of came into this a little late in the process when COVID hit. They had already started working with staff, and then they reached out because they needed some additional help. So Megan and I started working through this process so that she could move forward and get her Eagle Scout. For those of you that were Boy Scouts, I was not. But I do know that the Eagle Scout is the highest achievement that you can get. through the Boy Scouts of America. And so Megan graciously selected a project in the city. I don't know if you guys remember Kelly. Kelly Bressel is, and Martin are her mom and dad. And they both have worked for the city in the past in the police department. So I think she has her heart is kind of here in the city. So she did identify the old city cemetery. I know many of you have probably been out there. It's a very cool old cemetery in the city, and it is the city's old city cemetery. It's at the corner of Zelinsky and Ash, so it's in the more of the historic area of town. And they identified that they would like to clean the headstones as many as they could in the cemetery. And there was it was pretty major. There was a lot of discussion on how they could be cleaned and how to go through that process. And Megan did a lot of research on it. She had her work cut out for her because she had to deal with COVID and how she was going to get her volunteers out there. But they did on July 11th. She had 48 volunteers, and they set it up in a grid type pattern so that way they could comply with all the COVID requirements. And they cleaned 450 headstones out of the cemetery. And Megan is with us tonight, and Mary Rose has some photographs to show you as well. So Mary Rose, if you want to go first, and then maybe Megan can say a few words, that would be great.
Sure. So what I wanted to show you is some of the before and after pictures.
Wow.
So I don't know why. So you can see the bottom is after, obviously the top is before. And she had some more in here. Sorry, trying to do this on the fly. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
So just a couple of the.
No, it's quite amazing. Beautiful.
Impressive.
I really want to go down there and see the rest of them. Really amazing.
So we really thank Megan, and I don't know if Megan wants to have a couple of comments.
Yeah, sure. So like she said, we did about 450 headstones. We had quite a few volunteers. It was very difficult with COVID, but we had volunteers and scouts wear masks, social distance, and like Rochelle was talking about before, I divided the entire cemetery into 16 different grids and assigned groups with the grids. So there was about 2 to 5 people per area, and they were in their family groups or family units. So we were very COVID friendly. We provided lunch, which was also a challenge for COVID, but we made lunches there and gave individual packages to each volunteer. So with the headstones, we only used water. So what you see there with the picture, only water and plastic brushes were used, as we didn't want to damage any of the headstones with chemicals or anything like that. So just water and plastic brushes and lots of hard work.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Megan.
Thank you very much. It's that was a really nice to see. Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, it looks like Council Member Such would like to make a comment, sir.
Oh, I apologize. I didn't see her. Oh, now I see her on my screen.
Hi,
Yes.
Megan. So how much did you have to scrub a headstone to clean it like that? I mean, it looks like it's hours a headstone.
So each one is different. There's many different types of, like some headstones are made of marble and such, granite. So each one took about maybe 7 to 10 minutes each. But because we were working as teams and groups, an entire family was working on one each. But we started the project at 9 a.m. and we didn't finish till about 2:30 with a lunch break in there. But there was quite a time, and we took the entire morning and part of the afternoon working. And it's good. Yeah. Everything finished. Yeah.
It's lovely. Thanks for doing that.
Okay, item number E, public comment on any non-agenda items. The public may address the council on any item of public interest not otherwise on the agenda that is within the jurisdiction of the city. No action may be taken. Matters to be addressed may be referred to city staff or placed on subsequent meeting agenda. Speakers are limited to a 5-minute presentation. So let's see if we have any hands raised.
I see one.
Yes, Miss Coleman.
And
Looks like she has been muted. You can unmute her.
Hannah, if you can unmute. Because you are now host.
I can, she's muting it. I'm asking her to unmute. So I'm
Okay.
getting a signal to let her know.
There you go, Nikki.
Hello. I'm here to speak in regards to the Social Equity Committee. I have 3 points, and correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't see that on the agenda, so is now appropriate?
Yeah, there's nothing on the.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, three quick points in regards to the Social Equity Committee. I know the council is currently accepting applicants at the moment. And the first point I wanted to make is in regards to a timeline. I wasn't aware at this point if there's any deadlines in place for that, but I'd encourage the council to consider posting deadlines for both the application submissions and also the selection of the committee. Our city and our nation at this moment obviously is in the midst of the civil rights movement. I think it's important to capitalize and act on it in order to maximize community engagement. So the first is the point about the timeline. The second is in regards to the actual number of committee members that will be selected from the community versus the clarification on essentially how many council members and how many community members will be on it. I think there was some confusion and it wasn't as clear in the last city council meeting as to what those specific numbers are. Since it's not on the agenda, if someone could clarify that, that would be really helpful. The way that I understand it at the moment is that 5 community members will be selected for the Social Equity Committee. I'd like the council to consider adding additional 2 community members to that council or to that committee. It's very important to me, and I know other community members as well, that we have a really wide range of people from different ages, races, socioeconomic backgrounds. I think an additional 2 community members to bring the total to 7 community members for that committee would make us very successful. And the third point that I wanted to make is in regards to the selection process. The way that I understand it at this moment, the Social Equity Committee will be selected by appointment from each all 5 council members appointing a member. I'd like the council to consider selecting members from a selection of a pool of all applicants. So essentially, all applicants would go into a pool and the council would choose the top 5 to 7 candidates based on qualifications and diversity instead of by appointment from each council member. I think that would allow kind of the best pool and ensure that the 5 to 7 members that are selected are the top candidates that everyone agrees on, as opposed to perhaps just choosing one candidate that only one council member would like to represent. So those are the 3 points, and I appreciate your time, and I look forward to hearing more on how this committee comes together. Thank you.
Thank you. Just so you know, we're not allowed, because it's not agendized, to comment on it. So just so you know, we're not allowed to comment on it right now. Thank you. Is there anyone else? I see Tommy T.
Well, actually, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, Tyler, I believe, had his hand up raised in the queue here of the participants.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
as
didn't
well.
see that.
Is that, Tyler from Tuolumne County Transit, correct?
Correct.
Okay, Tyler, go ahead.
Excellent. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Excellent. I just wanted to share about an upcoming meeting that's taking place on Thursday, August 6th, and this will be for a virtual public meeting for members of the city of Sonora and Tuolumne County to weigh in on a Dragoon Gulch Connector Trail project that is currently being worked on. So this will be a Zoom-based meeting where we can share a little bit about what the Dragoon Gulch Connector project is and the intent to basically, submit this project to the state's active transportation program for funding this year. So this would be a great opportunity for folks to weigh in on the project, to hear about it, and the project proponents, who are working on this effort to ready the project could use the public's support and input on this. Again, it'll be done virtually, and that is on Thursday at 4 p.m. And more information can be found for this meeting both on the city's website and then also on the Tuolumne County Transportation Council's website at tuolumnecountytransportationcouncil.org. And then under the Active Transportation Program blog. So we're excited about this. We haven't received funding from this program in a long time, and we're hopeful that this project will be ready for consideration and hopefully a nod from the state to get funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thanks.
Okay, it looks like Councilmember Such had her hand raised maybe for a question for Tyler.
Yes. Tyler, is that this coming Thursday, this week?
Yes, this
Okay.
upcoming Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
And just for the public to know, we do have those Zoom meetings posted on the City of Sonora's website as well as our Facebook page for information on those Zoom meetings.
Excellent, thank you. Let's see, I see Tommy T. You can unmute.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, right on. I mostly just want to echo Nikki's comments earlier and her suggestion of expanding that committee from 5 to 7 community members. There are a lot of marginalized groups that exist within this community, and I think we should definitely work to make sure as many of them are represented on that committee as possible. So thank you guys for your time.
Thank you, Tommy. Is there anyone else with their hand raised? Anyone else like to speak? I don't see anyone. Do you, Hannah, have anyone?
No, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll go to item number F, consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar considered routine will be voted on in one motion unless a council member or member of the public has a question or wishes to discuss an item. In that case, the item will be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. Is there anyone on the council that would like to move or vote on separately any part of the consent calendar? Councilmember Such.
Yes, I would like to vote on these separately.
Okay. Okay, so with this, I guess I asked for any public discussion on this. Is there any public discussion on the consent calendar? I don't see any. Okay, so I'll bring it back to the council. Okay, so the consent calendar item 1, which is approval of disbursements in the amount of $222,361.14 for payroll inclusive of employee salaries, employer and employee taxes, and retirement contributions, and miscellaneous voluntary employee deductions. Would any council member like to comment on that? Any member of the public would like to comment on that? I see Ann's hand raised. I'm sorry, Ann.
Yeah, I just wanted to know about the, it looks like almost $80,000 in difference from the last disbursement. So I'm sure there's a reason. I just was curious why.
Yes, so as per, and Chris, I don't know if you want to speak up. I can speak.
I can speak to them.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
Those are basically holiday payouts that were approved and negotiated from the MOU. They happen on the first full payroll in July of every year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Okay, so I asked for public comment, and then I brought it back to the council. Would any other council member like to speak on this? Okay, so I will call for a
Move to approve consent calendar item number 1.
It's like Mark did a second, but he was muted.
Second, I was trying to push my space bar.
Okay, roll call vote.
Mayor Hawkins,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Plummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Garaventa,
Aye.
Councilmember Such,
Aye, excuse me,
And
aye.
Councilmember Segerstrom. And Councilmember Segerstrom is muted, but it looks like she said aye.
Aye.
Okay. Looks like it passes 5-0. Okay, item number 2 on the consent calendar, adopt resolution 8/3/2020A approving the employee salary schedules for cost of living and salary adjustments for the Sonora Firefighters Association, part-time/relief employees, and Sonora Management Employees Association. Would any council members like to comment on that? Councilmember Such.
I just would like to know what the budget, what this is going to cost.
Chris, do you want to follow up with
Yeah,
Councilmember Such?
I will. The increases are negotiated increases for each of those units. It is budgeted, and the total cost is approximately $75,000 annually for the increases that are across those 3 units.
And those were approved prior through MOU negotiations that the council approved.
I just don't think we should ever approve salary increases without knowing what the dollar amount is. That's all. So, thanks.
Okay, would any other members of the council like to comment? Mayor Pro Tem Plummer.
So Chris, aren't these the 2% increases, just a cost of living increase that we approved as part of our agreement?
Yes, there are some 2%, but there are also some adjustments based on the salary survey that was done in 2016. Those were negotiated to increases that would go each of the 3 years of the contract. And so in the final year of the 3, there are additional increases based on that 2016 survey.
Okay, thank you.
Any other council members like to comment? Okay, any public comment on this item? Okay, I'll bring it back to the council for a motion.
Move to approve resolution 0803/2020-A.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second from Mayor Pro Tem Plummer. Mary Rose, roll call, please.
Mayor Hawkins,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Plummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Garaventa,
Aye.
Councilmember Such,
Aye.
and Councilmember Sagerstrom. And once again, Councilmember Sagerstrom is muted, but she did say aye.
Okay.
Excellent. So it passes 5-0. Okay, item number G, public hearings. Consider and adopt a resolution declaring a special municipal election to be held on Tuesday, November the 3rd, 2020, for the submission of a ballot measure to city voters to approve an increase in the transient occupancy tax from 10% to 12% and applying the tax to campgrounds and recreational vehicle parks, requesting the Board of Supervisors of the County of Tuolumne to consolidate the election with the statewide general election and permitting the county registrar of voters to render the election services.
So at our last council meeting, the council members voted to bring back an item in regards to the transient occupancy tax to align the city with what the County of Tuolumne is doing as far as bringing forth an increase to the TOT tax to the voters in November. That increase represents a 2% increase, so an overall increasing your transient occupancy tax from a 10% of where it is now to 12%, and also including that tax to include campgrounds and RV parks. Currently, right now, we do have one RV park in the city of Sonora jurisdiction. However, that RV park is at the fairgrounds, which is under the agricultural district of the state of California, thereby exempting it from any city or county TOT tax. So as it stands right now, we don't have any campground or RV park. However, this would be able to expand if there were any campground or RV park that were to come into the city at a later period of time. Historically, throughout when transient occupancy tax has been created and increased, the city has always aligned its increase with the County of Tuolumne. We are trying to take that, or if the council so approves, trying to align once again the TOT to the County of Tuolumne, thereby asking the council to bring it forth in November. However, by bringing it forth in November, that puts us out of our general municipal election. So generally speaking, cities must submit their general taxes to city voters at a city general municipal election. Our next municipal election is actually not until March, when the primaries would happen in 2022. The city, however, cannot wait till March 2022 if the county is going to be bringing forth a TOT tax in November. And we're asking the city council to recognize what we would like to term as a fiscal emergency, thereby allowing us to place this TOT measure on the November ballot. We have to make this type of finding that it would be in a fiscal emergency to delay a TOT tax measure from by March of 2022, because if the county were to bring forth their tax measure, well, they are going to be bringing forth their tax measure, and it does pass by the voters, they would have an increase to that general tax revenue over what the city would be receiving. Thereby, our revenues would be reduced over what the county would be receiving. So we're asking the city council to make that fiscal emergency finding, thereby allowing us to place it on the November ballot. Also, by doing that, I would just like to point out again that, we are going to be looking at that fiscal emergency, COVID, we've been talking about COVID, how it has had impacts to our overall city general, fund revenues. We are going to be bringing back a budget for you for discussion at our next meeting, just for our final budget discussion. So in regards to a finding of that fiscal emergency, we're looking at it from two aspects. Historical precedent that we bring it forth together with the county. If the county were to have to take the voters were to approve that in November, and thereby the city would not have it on the ballot, we would go about 2 years without those additional revenues. In the time of COVID, these type of revenues are desperately needed for the city of Sonora. At our last meeting, we talked about how the increase to the general fund revenue would be about $80,000 if we were to see that 2% increase in TOT revenue. The other thing I'd like to point out, we've talked about, whether or not that would hinder any type of tourism that would come to our area. I would just like to remind the city council that in both our neighbors, Calaveras and Mariposa, currently have 12% TOT tax measures in their jurisdictions. And just for the public, I know there's a little bit of confusion last when the county put this measure on. Just for the public to understand, a transient occupancy tax is not a tax that is paid for by local residents. It is the tax that is paid for by our tourists that come to our area and utilize our hotels, and they pay that tax on top of the fee or of the cost of those hotels. This measure would also then expand what that TOT could then tax to include campgrounds and RV parks. So at this point, I can, so we're asking you to approve a resolution to waive the first reading, and then it will go, if we make that fiscal emergency finding, it could be placed on the November ballot for 2020. And Doug, I don't know if you wanted to follow up on anything from a legal perspective.
No, but I'm happy to answer any questions that come up.
Hey, would any council members like to comment at this time? Okay, so I don't see any council members. Okay, would any members of the public like to comment during this public hearing?
Mr. Mayor, I see Lori Lehman raising her hand. And once again, members of the public, if you would like to comment, if you could please raise your hand in the participant section of the Zoom meeting. You can click on the right of your name and there's a wave your hand feature. That way we can capture anybody that is wanting to comment.
Yeah.
My question is, how much does it cost to put something on the ballot when we go at this time? How much would it cost to do that? Thank you.
So, Doug, I don't know if you want to respond, but I mean, this will go on the November 2020 ballot. So we're asking that it goes to consolidate the election, thereby not having to have us put it on a special election, which we would incur costs if it would be a special election, but this would consolidate it to the November election.
Yeah, I think, Lori, looking at it historically, it's been in the roughly $4,000 range, but as the city administrator said, because it's the November consolidated election, it might be a little bit less, but probably in the, not more than $500 less.
Yeah, it's generally about $1 per resident to have that election.
Yeah.
Okay, would any other members of the public like to comment?
I did.
I see Jeff Michaels.
My hand is up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Michaels.
Thank you. I took part in a meeting around this with the Tuolumne Lodging Association last week. And I think that we have actually quite a few concerns around this. We do understand the budget shortfall and the need to increase revenue collected from the taxes. But nonetheless, we've heard a lot of rumors on the back end that what has long been a respected allocation of 25% of the transient occupancy tax going to the Tuolumne County Visitors Bureau has not been guaranteed on our behalf, which we view, if it's reduced any further, as being taxation without representation, because our businesses do need to receive additional promotional support, marketing support, sales support, which they provide to us. We also have to incur significant credit card fees in collecting this tax, and there hasn't been any mention of us being able to deduct that when we do submit the monthly TOT. In addition to that, it's great that there's 25% that's being given to the Tuolumne County Visitors Bureau, but many other jurisdictions allocate an additional percentage when they do increase TOT to having conference service support, so that hotels, such as most of the hotels in the Sonora area that have very limited conference base, can upsell to larger revenue groups and not lose that to other jurisdictions. And although we probably would not be able to do that with this additional 2%, it could allow us to look at rehabilitating the Opera Hall to be utilized for more multifunctional space for larger groups. And so I think that the concern that we have, although this is an emergency, is that it would be wise and diligent to have some sort of a third-party consultancy that would be able to say, here's what you can expect in terms of potential loss of bookings that would affect us in the business, if there is any. Here's some sort of guarantee of percentage that would be given to the Tuolumne County Visitors Bureau. We don't have any of these core issues have not been addressed, even though it affects our industry at large. And I'm wondering if there's any comment around those points by the city, if you've considered this, if you've looked at this beyond just the fact that you need more revenue for other city services.
Mr. Mayor, would you like me to comment on the 25%?
Yes.
So currently, the city of Sonora is in a three-way agreement with the Visitors Bureau and the County of Tuolumne to ensure that 25% of all TOT revenue goes to the Visitors Bureau. The city, I know there has been talk on the county side to dissolve that contract. There has not been any talk on the city side to discontinue that 25% of revenue to the Visitors Bureau. Our 25% of TOT revenue is budgeted going to the Visitors Bureau. So unless I see anything else coming from the council at this point, the city is still beholden to that contract and still sees that we will be giving the Visitors Bureau 25% of all TOT revenue, which means that if there is an increase of that TOT revenue to 12%, the Visitors Bureau would receive an increased allocation due to that 2% increase of TOT revenue.
Thank you, Mary Rose.
And the other point?
The other point, and I don't know if any other council members want to speak up, we have not done official research on seeing if business would be reduced based on the increase to the TOT tax. I will say that we are in competition with our neighbors, Calaveras and Mariposa, and there are still quite a bit of visitors that do go to those counties, especially as a Yosemite gateway from the Mariposa side. And so from our informal research, we have not seen a reduction in visitors because of a 12% TOT tax. But that's informal, sir. That's not any type of formal consultancy research.
And would the city be open to utilizing, if there is an increase, a portion of this to have improved facilities for conference services so that we can generate additional revenue? I mean, that is kind of the point.
So as it's written in front of the council.
Standard.
So as
that is pretty standard in a lot of jurisdictions.
So as it's written right now, it's a general tax. So it would come into the general revenues. I don't, if we were to put specific allocations on where that money is to be spent, it would take it from a general to a special tax, which would change the, it would change the voter percentage needed to pass it. As of right now, you know, going into the general revenues, general revenues do support our capital infrastructure, such as the Opera Hall. And I will say, Mr. Michaels, you know, the Opera Hall and ensuring that it's getting up to speed, it's a constant talk right now between City Hall staff. One of the things we are doing right now in the Opera Hall is ensuring that we've got high-speed internet going out there. We're trying to look at other infrastructure mechanisms for the Opera Hall. We are just budget constrained at this moment. At this point, the way that the ordinance and resolution are written as presented to the council, knowing that we have an August 7th deadline to get this to election, there is not a specific designation of the TOT tax revenues that would be generated if it were to go to the voters in November.
And could there be the possibility that we can deduct the amount that we have to assume with third-party credit card companies just to collect this tax on the city's behalf?
You know, I am going to defer to my finance director on that. I don't know if that's something we can, or Chris.
Yeah, we generally would not do that. I don't know that any other agencies or jurisdictions do that.
Just because he collects all the business tax revenue. Sorry, I didn't have the answer ready for you.
I think Councilmember Such had a question.
Jeff, why is there a separate credit card charge for transient, for this increased transient? Excuse me?
There isn't. We collect everything, like all hotels, of course. We're moving. I mean, almost all of us are encouraging credit cards. I mean, it obviously, there's not very many hotels anymore that are just doing cash, obviously, because of the demographic of guests you can get. You can't collect for incidentals if there's damages. So, for example, our properties are credit card only, which is pretty standard today. But we have to pay about 3% on whatever revenues collected. So basically, when you look at the total amount of revenue that we collect on behalf of the city, 3% of that is fees that we have to pay regardless, and we can't deduct that. And I feel like there should be some way for us to just simply show we're collecting this on behalf and just do a very simple calculation so that it's fair, that we as businesses don't have to assume that.
Is that typical in the industry that a city would assume that? That a city would assume that, or is it?
I don't know. I mean,
no.
That I don't know.
I would think not, but
Cost of doing business.
Mayor Pro Tem.
So if I understand this correctly, Mr. Michaels, you're saying that us raising it is going to actually lower your profit margin by the percentage it costs to add on the additional 2%. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that seems pretty clear. So we're punishing your business by raising the tax in essence.
I mean, I think that's debatable, depending on, you know, if obviously there's a benefit if it continues to go to the Tuolumne County Visitors Bureau. That's my perspective. Okay, I can't. But I do think that obviously at a time where we're already coping with decreased revenue ourselves, it certainly doesn't help.
Thank you very much. I think you make at least a serious point there.
Okay, I believe Rhonda Buess, I can't say the last name, but had their hand raised. Oh, they were unmuted.
Well, they were unmuted, now they're muted again.
How's that? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now
I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, this is Fred Buess, Rhonda's husband. We own a bed and breakfast up in the old Segerstrom house on Knowles Hill. And I have to say we've been pretty severely hit by the COVID crisis financially, and when a client books with us and is looking at the total price, that includes the TOT, and so the idea that the client pays that is a bit of a myth. I mean, they look at the whole price and they decide whether to book with us or not based on the price. And if the price goes up, fewer people are going to book with us. So my sense is that by raising it, you may actually not bring as much revenue into the city as you expect, because we'll have fewer bookings. And we are struggling to bring people to Tuolumne County. We're not the closest county to Big Trees. We're not the closest county to Yosemite. Our theaters are closed, and we are really struggling. The restaurants, the bars, the situation is really rough. And I'm surprised that, the city would entertain the idea of hitting us, with another financial, hit on top of what we've already been through. So I hope you'd consider and have mercy on us. We're really all trying to pull together here, and another tax or a higher tax on us really isn't going to help us. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else with their hand raised that would like to speak on this issue? Anna, do you see anyone else?
I don't see anyone, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, just want to make sure everyone has a fair chance to speak. Okay, then I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for a motion and or discussion. Mayor Pro Tem Plummer.
I have a question for our city administrator. Are we voting on this as, all one vote, or is it being broken up into the section 1 and section 2, et cetera, where section 1 has to be unanimous or it doesn't go forward?
And I'm going to defer to legal on this, Doug. Do we need to have a separate finding on the financial emergency? Can the council vote for it in all one item, or do we need to do the voting on the resolution and then having a separate motion on the fiscal emergency?
So if you're going to vote the same on each, you can do them at the same time. If you are not, then I would suggest breaking them up. That being said, the ability to put it on an upcoming ballot is somewhat predicated on there being some consistency in terms of a majority, though. So.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Councilmember Sagestrom.
Okay, let's see if I can figure out the mute button. Can you hear me?
Yes. We can hear you.
Okay. All right. So I'm just looking at these percentages, and so say somebody's coming to Sonora and spending $100 a night on a hotel room. So okay, so 12% would be $12, but the margin is going up $2. I mean, are they really going to notice the difference between $10 and $12 on the TOT? And for the 3%, we're talking 36 cents. I mean, credit card charges. I know they're abusive to the business owner, and I'm very sorry about it because everybody's using their credit card, but maybe they should go to debit cards only, and then they don't have to pay a fee. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of council that would like to speak? I don't see anyone else. So I guess I will entertain a motion if we're going to separate it out, or how does everyone would like to do that? Don't speak all at once.
So
Councilmember Such?
It seems to be that we should vote on it as one if we need both of them to pass. It doesn't make sense to vote separately to me.
well, that's true.
Is it possible to just say something real quick? I'm so sorry to break in.
Yeah, I'm sorry the public comment period is over with. I apologize.
Actually, she's a separate person. It was Fred that spoke the first time.
No, I know, but we closed public
We
comment.
closed public
Yeah, we
comment.
did.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. Oh, you're right. You're right.
And we're actually
With the-
deliberations.
We've closed public comment.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's way with the laws work. I apologize.
I'm sorry. I had a very bad spot in the communication with the computer, and I just heard what Ann had said. I just wanted to tell.
Yeah,
I'm not allowed to say anything.
I am terribly sorry.
Yeah, once public comment is ended, it's ended for an item, unfortunately.
So it looks like the council's still thinking about this. So I mean, again, I'll entertain a motion of some sort and we'll go from there. I think everybody knows my opinion on taxes and everybody's struggling. I mean, I can say that personally and publicly that, you know, I know that everybody's struggling and I'm not a fan of tax increases, but again, I'll entertain a motion.
So just for the record, in order for this to be successful and to be able to be taken up on the November 2020 ballot and not have to go to 2022, it would require unanimous vote.
Okay. Well, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to kind of weigh in a little bit. I sit on the Visitors Bureau as a representative for the city. And I know firsthand that there's been, and I think Mr. Michaels kind of alluded to it, the 25% to the Visitors Bureau quabble, I guess, with the county. I think it's pretty clear, at least in my mind, and you know, with other, I can't speak for other council members, but it's clear in my mind that, and I think the rest of the council members would likely support that we would not be doing anything different than what we've been doing in the past. And stay at the 25% so that the Visitors Bureau has a strong enough revenue stream to do the marketing that they do to bring more people in here. I think it would be, I think to have the extra 2% and make it 12%, I think it would be, I think this is the best opportunity. I think that it's going to pass in the county. I think it's going to this time. I think there's enough people behind the measure, and I think it would be best for us to be at the even playing field in the city as it would be for the county. It'd be nice if it was a more efficient and perfect way for the city and the county to be together, but on this, but that's different jurisdictions mean that we have different constituencies vote for the tax increase. The city voters would only vote for what's in the city, and ironically, as it turns out, city voters will also vote for the county measures or vote for or against the county measure as well, because they're also county residents. So they're actually going to vote on two different ballot measures. It would be nice if that was just one single ballot measure, and it would be much more efficient, and we'd know what would happen in the county, what would happen in the city. What is really driving what I feel my vote on this is that we are behind on, we are 2% less than our neighbors. I'm not even sure what Stanislaus is, but they're not really what you would think of as a tourist mecca anyway. I think it would be smart for us to be at the same level playing field all around and then go from there. So I am in support of putting this on the ballot, and of course, it will be up to the voters of the city to decide whether this should happen or not. But that's kind of where I'm at and kind of my feelings, and I'm ready to make a motion unless anyone else wants to weigh in.
Jim, I guess I'll just echo. Again, I don't like taxes just like the next person, but I think that we need to take this to the voters. I've gotten a lot more positive comments about it. I want to recognize we've got negative comments also, but I have received a lot more positive comments about it. And yeah, I just want to echo what you said.
Right. And just as a quick point, you know, we're talking about the fire tax going together on the same issue, that we're all together, and it already costs us another 0.25% in the city on sales tax because of Measure I, and that could have been a much better even playing field if the county had at that time worked with the city and the city had worked with the county. I think it was more of a city issue at that point on Measure I, but you know, we should all be paying, it should be an even playing field and we should all be together. In that way, it's our quality of services that people want instead of what tax rate differs. And so that's where I'm going with that. I think we all should be the same.
Mayor Pro Tem. You're muted.
Yes.
You're unmuted.
Somehow I think it's my bird in the background keeps on highlighting me when I'm not speaking at all. So I'm better off muted. So most of you know how reluctant I am to support any taxes that are new and I feel that way about this one. This seems, when times are tough, seems like the worst time to be raising taxes. That said, I'm going to reluctantly support this because it's being put to the voters. It's not us making a decision on whether we're going to raise the taxes. And I think that the democratic aspect of this should be what carries the day and not our personal feelings on how much or what would be appropriate. Our public safety really does need more money. We need more money in our police, our fire, our public works across the board. Everybody is, heck, we're lucky to have the people we have and that they have not decamped to other places that pay more money. So I will be supporting that for this reason. And I will move to approve.
I'll second.
And just for clarification, we're talking about both of them, correct?
You're talking about the entire packet unless somebody wants, I figured if anybody wanted to break it apart to support the one and then vote against the tax itself, that they would have already spoken up.
Okay, so we had a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Plummer and a second by Councilmember Garaventa. Mary Rose, roll call vote, please.
Mayor Hawkins,
I will reluctantly vote aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Plummer,
I'm with the mayor. Yay.
Councilmember Garaventa,
Aye.
Councilmember Such,
Aye.
and Councilmember Segerstrom.
Aye. I would also like to comment that there will be a rebuttal on the ballot and the pamphlet. So hopefully we can bring up these issues that our public has raised.
Yes, Councilmember Segerstrom, that's actually the very next item.
Okay, it looks like it passes 5-0. So item number I, under new business, consideration to appoint council members to a subcommittee of 2 members of the city council to file arguments in favor of, and rebuttal arguments submitted against ballot measures. 1A is to change the positions of the city clerk and city treasurer from elected positions to appointed positions. And then B, an increase to the city transient occupancy tax from 10% to 12%, and applying the tax to campgrounds and recreational, it says recreational vehicles, but that should be like recreational.
Recreational vehicles, RV parks.
Yes.
So the item before you is actually looking at our two separate ballot measures that are going to be brought forth before the voters in November. The first one was voted by 4-1 on June 1st of 2020 to bring forth a resolution changing the positions of city clerk and city treasurer from elected to appointed positions. The council did approve that. I am asking for direction to create a subcommittee of 2 council members to file arguments in favor of and rebuttal arguments for that ballot measure. And then your second ballot measure, of course, is the TOT measure that the council just voted in favor of. So I'm looking for the council for 2 separate subcommittees of 2 council members for arguments in favor of and for rebuttal arguments.
Okay. Council discussion on, let's take 1A.
Mayor, are you looking for volunteers, or did you want to appoint someone?
I would like volunteers. There's a little more heart that will go into whatever is written if there's volunteers.
Do we know the
Councilmember
deadlines?
Sutch.
Do we know the deadlines that these have to be in by? Because that was part of the problem last time. It wasn't exactly clear what the deadlines were, and it passed before when we found out, so.
And Doug, I'm going to look for you on the deadlines here. I know it's not the August 7th deadline. Is it? We presented to elections by August 7th, and then they set the deadline for the arguments in favor of and rebuttal. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, it's going to be fairly soon. I mean, we'd like to get at least the arguments done probably within the next couple weeks. So
yeah,
I would say 2 weeks max.
Yeah, ideally sooner.
Yes.
Councilmember Sutch, and then Mayor Pro Tem, and then Councilmember Sagerstrom.
I volunteered to write these. If you choose.
Which ones? The rebuttal, against, for?
I don't care. I'd write either one.
That's what I appreciate about you. You can debate either side. I really appreciate that about you.
I'm not sure that's accurate, but thank you.
I am offering to volunteer for the rebuttal on item B.
Okay. Okay, and then Councilmember Sutch, did you want to do the in favor of on item B? Oh, you're muted.
We can't hear you.
I'm doing dog control, so I have to. Why don't you talk to Ann and see what she had her hand up. I'll just take whatever is left.
Okay.
And Mayor, if I could, before we go too far,
yes.
So the positions would be the majority positions of the council. So as an example, on item, on the first one, it would be arguments, both argument and rebuttal would be from the position of in favor of moving towards a appointed rather than elected city clerk and treasurer. And on items, and on second item, it would be in support of the increase in the TOT. So when people would be agreeing to write the rebuttals and the positions, it would have to be from the majority council position.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. So,
Doug, does that mean
only how do you get any rebuttals?
Well, they'll have the opportunity to write. So whoever wants to oppose these items would have an opportunity to write their position, and this is a rebuttal to what they've written, essentially. So.
Okay, so it's not that a rebuttal is required. It's just that for those people against it, an opportunity to weigh in against it.
So each one will have each side will have the opportunity to essentially write their position, and then each will have the opportunity to read that and then do a rebuttal to it to correct what they may believe to be errors or things of that nature. So the people who would be writing from the council's position would always be writing from the perspective of the majority council position. So again, in favor of an appointed and or city clerk and treasurer on the first item. And on the second item, in support of the increase in the TOT.
Okay, so we have no rebuttals to write.
No, you would be doing a rebuttal against the argument against it.
Correct.
Does that make sense? So there would be an argument in favor that two council members would be writing. Then from the public, there would be an argument against.
Okay.
Then council members would be writing a rebuttal against the members of the public who are opposed to the ballot measure.
Okay, then, so it wasn't anything that I'm out. I'm not going to be helpful.
So yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, that does make more sense.
Councilmember Sagestrom?
Is there, how is this being reviewed? Once you write what are we calling this? The position statement and the rebuttal, who reviews it? And you know, I mean, there's got to be some sort of,
I would say
legal review. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I would make sure legal reviews before it's sent to election.
So do we build that into the 2 weeks?
Yeah.
I would, yes.
We turned it around pretty quickly. I mean, it will likely be the same day or the next day. So,
okay,
but
well, I'm happy to write one of these, whichever one Colette's not writing, but I probably will need some help with that description of what I'm supposed to be doing again. So the position of the city council and then the rebuttal, I'm still a little confused about that, but I'm happy to write either one.
And Doug, just to make it more simple, we can have two council members for each of those items that can do both the arguments in favor of and the rebuttal, correct?
That's correct.
So
That's correct.
you can pick two council members to write the argument in favor and also to write that rebuttal, and then have two additional council members to do the other ballot measure for the argument in favor of and the rebuttal. And when I mean the rebuttal against the public opposed to the ballot measure.
Yeah, there'll be an argument in support, which will be
I see. So I see. Okay, now I know what you're saying. So there could be people who are putting a counter statement into the ballot booklet. Okay, got it. All right, thank you. Sorry.
Right. It's not the council representing both sides. It's someone in the public who cares enough, who gets
right.
So that's where I was.
Like the lodging community would mount the. Okay, fine, got it. Okay.
Councilmember Garaventa.
Well, I was just going to try to make it simpler, to try to simplify it, at least in my mind. So basically, in the next couple of weeks, we're just writing the pro for each measure. The community has responsibility to come up with an anti. That will be later down the road. That will be done when the deadline comes, and then we have so much time to answer that in a rebuttal. So the first thing to focus on is going to be the pro statements for both measures. And then once that deadline passes in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whenever it is, then we'll find out if we even have to write a rebuttal. And then we'll have like a week and a half or 10 days to write a rebuttal if someone has done a separate anti-argument. So it's kind of a two-step process rather than trying to write them all at one time, get them all done in 2 weeks. We just write the first ones now, and if there's a second one, the second one's later. Okay.
Yes.
Simplifies it.
Councilmember Such.
So if Ann and I were chosen to do this, Could we just write them both together? Or does one person have to write one and one person have to write the other? Could we just write them, we could just get together and write them?
Correct.
That would be fun. But I think. All right. I'm willing if you want.
Excellent. So Ann and Colette, did you want to do both of these, or did you want to pick out one of them? How did, again, I'm looking for a little, council direction. Jim, did you?
I wasn't exactly volunteering, but
okay.
I can't.
Okay. No, that's perfectly fine. I just want to make sure, the council.
I guess the idea of having two people is the idea of having two people so we don't get into a Brown Act situation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, you don't want more than two people, obviously, to be meeting to discuss it.
Okay. Yeah. So if they want to want to team up on both of them, then I would be third. So.
Do you want to do that, Ann, or do you want to write?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine with me.
All right.
That's great.
We could do it over dinner.
Yeah. Over dog barking. Yeah. But I would really encourage the people who called in tonight to also submit, to the ballot, to the voting manual, their rebuttal to these measures.
Please.
So
Okay,
Doug, we need a motion though, Doug, however, right?
We do to formally create the purpose of the motion is really to formally create the subcommittees and to officially charge our two council members with those official responsibilities to act on behalf of the council in total.
Okay. So Mr. Mayor, I'll move to approve your appointments of Councilmember Such and Councilmember Stegstrom to a subcommittee to write the in favor of arguments for the two ballot measures and any possible rebuttal arguments.
Yay, I second it.
Excellent. Motion by Councilmember Garaventa and second by Mayor Pro Tem Plummer. Mary Rose, roll call vote, please.
Public comment?
Mayor Hawk.
I apologize. Thank you. Is there any public comment on this? I don't see any hands raised.
And people can use the raise your hand thing on Zoom, and I don't know, is Hannah the host?
Oh yeah, no, I'll go over it. So if you'd like to participate in public comment, press *9 if you're on your phone. If you are on your computer, a tablet, or phone, look under participant and use the raise your hand function. Otherwise than that, if you're using your video, you can wave it profusely, which I think Tommy T was, not, I wouldn't call it profusely, but at least raised his hand to speak. But just do that and then we'll recognize you that way. So Mayor, I think Tommy was wanting to speak.
Yes.
So then we'll just have Hannah unmute him and he can.
Yeah, so I guess my question is why is this coming up? Why are we moving towards making these appointed positions versus elected positions at all? I'm a little confused as to why it's being raised.
I didn't quite get that.
So the discussion of putting that on the ballot measure took place when we brought the item forward, which was back in June. This item is not to discuss whether or not we were approving a resolution, only to appoint the two council members for that ballot measure. Correct, Doug?
Yeah, so all we're doing right now is figuring out who's going to write the ballot statements and the rebuttals that go into the ballot statements that you get, the little booklet that you get. It's just appointing the two people on the council because we can't have three because that would be a Brown Act violation. So that's why it's two. And so they write on behalf of the council majority those positions so that they can be done and done in a timely fashion. So it's just officially discharging.
So I want to know why this is going up for a vote. I should look back at that. What date was the meeting this was discussed at?
June 1st.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Mary Rose. Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else like to discuss it? Any member of the public?
Again, if anyone would like, I think Councilmember Such, but if any member of the public would like to speak, again, press *9 or use the raise your hand function.
I don't see anyone else.
I did see Councilmember Such, Mayor, but I don't see a member of the public.
Okay, then I will bring it back to the council. Councilmember Such.
I just, did you say June 1st or July 1st?
Should be June 1st.
It's June 1st?
Yes.
Okay.
The first meeting in July was July 6th.
It's just under discussion. It says on July 1st, 2020.
And that might be a misprint. It is June 1st
All
that
right.
the item came before the council.
All right. Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Garaventa and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Plummer. Had public discussion. So Mary Rose, roll call vote, please.
Mayor Hawkins,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Plummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Garaventa,
Aye.
Councilmember Such,
Aye.
and Councilmember Sagerstrom.
Aye.
Okay, passes 5-0 to have Councilmember Such and Councilmember Sagerstrom write the arguments in favor of and any rebuttal arguments against. Okay, so item number I2 under new business is consideration to assign the mayor's appointments to the city committees and community/government committees and commissions. And then Mary Rose, before you say anything, I'd like to just say a couple things. Spent a lot of time on this and tried to be, Jim, I now understand why it took time to do this. It took a lot of time. I need to recognize Councilmember Such for saving me a lot of time with a blank, there's a blank sheet, so there was no Brown Act violations of any sort, but there was a blank sheet that Councilmember Such had made up basically with committees and times and what committees existed, and it saved a lot of time. So I hope in the future we use the same format of organization, because it really did save me and my family a lot of time. I was able to go do more stuff with kids. So thank you. But just got to say it took a lot of time. I tried to be very fair. And Colette, you had sent me your basically your wants, your likes, and that sort of thing. So I tried to keep it very fair. So hopefully everybody is very happy with this. If there's any issues, I'm sure we can take it up in the future also. Mary Rose, did you need to add anything else?
So I just, it's kind of difficult under these circumstances. Normally we have the list available to the public. What the council is voting on in front of them at the moment is generally when the council changes hands, changes seats, and there's a new mayor. The mayor has the ability to then make recommendations for each council member to serve on different committees and commissions that the city has internally, and also that the city represents throughout the county and other jurisdictions at large. On our website is a list of all of the committees and commissions that city council members serve on. And what the mayor is doing right now is presenting the list to the council members, and the council will be voting on selecting those particular council members to sit on those different committees and commissions. So we normally do this in July. The mayor had requested that we put it off a couple of meetings so he had better time to review, and that is why it's coming back on August 3rd here. But what is in front of the council, I did supply them with a list of the mayor's recommendation. I will just say one correction on the, let me see, make sure. On the governmental committee page for the Parking and Traffic Commission, I believe I had submitted for the council member to be Jim Hawkins and the alternate to be Mark Plummer. The mayor has requested that council member that is represented on that commission be himself, Matt Hawkins, and the alternate Mark Plummer. Other than that, the list should stand as is.
I think there's supposed to be just 2 regular members on that. 2 regular, it's a commission. So I think there's actually,
Two.
it would be Matt and Mark as the council members.
Okay.
And I will. If so moved by the council to have Mark as the second council member. Mr. Mayor, did you want to select an alternate or commission?
If that group does require an alternate, then okay, I put a lot of thought into it. I just didn't think of that part. So I guess the alternate would be Mr. Garaventa.
I can do it if you want. I've been on it, so. But yeah, I'm not sure there's an alternate. I think it's just the 2 council members. But if there is an alternate, I'd be happy to.
I think that's perfect.
May I just ask a question?
Yes, Councilmember Sutch.
What commission were you just talking about?
This would be the
Parking and traffic?
Mm-hmm.
yes. So is there any discussion, anything? Like I said, I did my best to try to keep this as fair as possible and go from there. So is there any discussion on this?
I have an issue.
Oh, yes.
So on the Cable 8, which is actually Access Tuolumne, by the way.
Oh, that's right.
I cannot be an alternate because there's a conflict for me.
Yes. I apologize. Okay. Is there anyone that would like to volunteer to be the alternate for Cable 8?
Access Tuolumne. Not Cable
Well,
8.
then I will.
See, Jerry, I know Jerry's watching. He's want me to know that it's want to let you know it's Access Tuolumne, not Cable 8.
Okay, so then I will go ahead and be the alternate, unless Ann or Colette would like to. Ann, did you want to say something?
Sure, I'll be the alternate on Access Tuolumne.
Okay, and that is.
May I ask another question? So with all the blanks and the dates and times, what does that mean? That they don't meet? That they're
No,
what does that signify?
So the list that was submitted to be able to get recommendations had requested that input on when committees meet, dates and times. Those committees, I have not received information of when those days. I will find out. We don't put that information on our website about dates and times of when they meet. It's more of an internal type of document for us. I still need to find out exactly when those committees or commissions meet.
And will you revise the schedule for us so that all the changes are put in, or should we do that?
Yes, I'm doing it right now as we're speaking.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else like this? Any other? Oh, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I also have a question. There seems to be a committee that I wasn't aware of, the League of California Cities.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a committee?
Yes, so the League of California Cities, we are a member. We have to select a voting delegate and 2 alternate voting delegates. So that is a new selection this cycle because we haven't had membership for a while. The voting membership, or the voting delegate is required to be at League of City business meetings to be able to vote. And so those were the voting delegate and the 2 alternates that the mayor selected.
Okay, so we're doing it as as this committee process now instead of a council action, because we used to do it as a council action.
We can do it in this process, or if you want me to bring it back through a council action. It doesn't, I mean, either or, you can do it through this process.
It's perfectly fine by me.
Yeah, it's just, it's a different format that we've done in the past. That's why I was wanting to find out what the deal was, but I don't care how we do it, but.
Yeah, if the council wants it to come back as an action, I won't be offended. I honestly just, want to make sure everybody is happy with their, the committee assignments.
It's not necessary to bring it back as a second. All it requires is the mayor's signature that he has designated these voting delegates. So we don't need a specific resolution to show the League of Cities that these are our voting delegates.
Okay.
Councilmember Sagestrom, you're muted.
You're muted, Ann.
Unmute. Thank you. So if the council member who is assigned to the committee cannot attend, how does the alternate know that they're supposed to attend?
Usually what happens, and Jim, I know this happened a few times, usually they'll get a hold of the mayor or get a hold of me, but a lot of times it'll, there'll be a phone call, but in this case, the mayor should make the decision on, okay, well, this alternate's going, instead of this one. I put it in order, basically, Councilmember Such, and if she couldn't attend, then Mayor Pro Tem Plummer, and then of course you.
So you would alert us if we were.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Well, actually, usually if the person that is on the committee can't make it, they just usually text the alternate or call the alternate and tell them when they're coming.
That's a much better system.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
well,
agree.
whatever. I just didn't know how the alternate was alerted. So, okay.
I think just.
Tim, I think she's asking because there are two alternates in this case.
Oh, we're talking about the League of California Cities?
Yes. So normally the person who can't make it just telephones the alternate and sets it up more directly, but.
I would think so. I think there'd be a delay going to the mayor. I think it just, in the happenstances that we had with the issues earlier is that just happened to be, I would happen to be the mayor who would know that someone couldn't come, and so I text or try to get a hold of the other person.
Okay, well, just so that you're alerted that you're needed. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Okay, I think you did a fine job in working this out. When we get a finalized date and time, we might need to do a little further tweaking with it. But do we need public comment for this?
Yes.
Yes.
We'll be asking for public comment.
Okay.
So one thing before we go to public comment, I did notice that the Energy Action Committee had no alternate. Should there be?
That one I wasn't sure of if it was needed a alternate or not. Colette, would you know? Is there an alternate for that group?
I don't think that Connie ever had an alternate, but I think there should. I actually think it would be nice if there could be an alternate.
I agree.
I mean,
I think it was a committee that was just kind of set up on its. I don't think it's one of our standing committees per se, but it just kind of got formed because of what they were doing.
But it's a very active committee, so it would be really nice if they could have an alternate, if I could have an alternate.
So who would be interested in being the alternate is the question.
I will.
Thank you, Ann.
Yay.
Okay.
Well, it's run by my cousin. He's already tapped me, so. So I'm happy to do that.
He is a very nice man. I really like him and his family. Okay, so are there any other questions? Okay, so I will ask for public comment on this. Is there any public comment on the mayor's committee assignments?
Again, if you'd like to participate, please press *9 or use the raise your hand function.
I don't see anyone raising their hand.
I don't either, Mr. Mayor.
So I will bring it back to the council for a motion and a second.
Mr. Mayor, I will move to approve your appointments as we've just amended them to the city committees and community government committees and commissions. Committees and commissions.
Okay, got a motion by Councilmember Garaventa and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Plummer. Mary Rose, roll call, please.
Mayor Hawkins,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Plummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Garaventa,
Aye.
Councilmember Such,
Aye.
and Councilmember Sagerstrom.
Aye.
And
Hey,
once this is, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, once this is finalized, this will be available on our website for the public to be able to view the different committees and commissions and which council members serve on which one.
Thank you. Passes 5-0. Under new business, number 3, approve an amendment to the consultant services agreement with Kimley Horn and Associates Incorporated to include the proposed additional services under the scope of work and increase the total not exceed amount payable under the agreement to $387,763.38.
And Mr. Mayor and council members, as you know, your community development director, Rochelle Kellogg, has spent many hours on this project. So I'm going to defer to her as she walks you through this item.
Thank you. I wanted to do a little background, if nothing else, just to catch the public up as to where we are in this process. It has been a long project and has continued for a couple years now. So I just, like I said, I'm going to kind of walk through this a little slower than we normally would, but there's a lot that has occurred over the last couple of years and we need to bring everybody up to speed. So this project was identified in the Vision Sonora plan, not specifically the location that we have today, but the need for a new transit location was identified in that plan. We do have Darren Gorsky with us tonight, so he is available as we get through this if you have any questions for him related to more the transit area. This is the PS&E, which is your plans and your specifications and your estimates and your final plans, engineered plans. That is all going through the process now. It's being funded through CMAQ dollars, which are congestion relief type dollars through the federal government. So on June 18, 2018, the consultant contract was awarded to Kimley Horn after we went through the required procurement process. And then following that contract award, we had some public outreach activities that occurred, some of which occurred over a week or so period here at City Hall. And then we held 2 meetings, one on August 6th, 2018 to select the preferred location for the transit. As you can remember, we were looking at 2 different areas. One was South Washington Street at Church, and the other was along Stockton Street. So Stockton Street was selected as the preferred location over South Washington Street. Then the second meeting regarding the design area was August 20th, 2018, and that was to finalize the shelter design and also the monument sign that was then part of the project. Based on the direction that came from the council, Kimley Horn and Daniel Carley has been the project engineer from Kimley Horn the whole time through this process. Daniel is also with us tonight, so he can answer any questions that you may have for him. So on January 22nd, the council reviewed the 35% plans, gave direction to staff and moved forward with preparation of the 65% plans. Again, the plan percentages are just the level of detail in the plans. The 35% plans are not near as detailed as the 65, and then as we move forward, we get it more into the actual plans that are used more for the construction. I am not an engineer, so questions related to what the difference is probably would be good to be directed to Daniel. Then on May 9th, 2019, we held a project field meeting here with Caltrans. We had numerous members of Caltrans here. Darren Grossy was involved in that meeting. The consultants were as well, and city staff, including the then city administrator Tim Miller. We were all at the meeting with Caltrans. We walked the site. From that meeting, we looked at they looked at any areas of concern they might have, and they also were very concerned about the proposed HOC system that was part of the project, and that they asked the city at that time to consider removing the HOC system from the project, and instead at the crossing at Green and Stockton Street to put in to look at placing a pedestrian refuge island in the project, and again remove the HOC system. So on June 3rd, the council considered that and approved going ahead with removing the HOC from the project and using a pedestrian refuge medium instead. Then on October 7th, 2019, Daniel presented the 65% plans that reflected the council's direction, and also all the previous meetings and comments that we had received from Caltrans to date, so that we could start moving forward with the final plans and specifications. Following council's approval to move forward in any direction that we received at that meeting, Kimberly Hord made any changes, and then the plans were submitted to Caltrans. So from October, when the 65% plans were in, through March, we had numerous meetings and discussions with Caltrans, and especially Daniel. I was involved with some, but most of them were direct with our consultant as they worked through any plan changes that needed to be had, and also design exception documents that we had to submit. This Caltrans, as you can imagine, have standards that they want to see on their state highway. And if there was any exception to those standards, we have to go through an approval process. And so those documents were also discussed on what the city would need to prepare. So that all occurred through March. And then on April 1st, 2020, the 95% project plans were submitted to Caltrans. As this was all going on, of course, COVID hit. So it became more and more complicated to work through some of the plan review. All Caltrans staff at that time and currently still are working from remotely and from home. So it has really slowed down our process as we go through, because we're getting multiple comments, and we can't have, other than a Zoom meeting, it's very difficult. They can't talk to each other very well. And so it has made the process very slow. So comments on the 95% plans that were submitted in April came back to the consultant on June 18th. We're also working, like I said, through the design exceptions. Some of it is because we're working in a constrained area. There are standards that can't be met just because of where the location is of the project. So we are, again, working through that. Also, along this process, Caltrans decided in October 2018 that they were going to be the lead agency on the environmental document. Because this is federal money, we had NEPA and CEQA that had to be done on the project. So Caltrans took the lead. They required whatever studies that they wanted to see done for the project on the environmental side. And we went through that process. They completed the environmental review of the project back on December 24th, 2019. They found a notice of exemption under CEQA, and it was categorically exempt under NEPA. So the environmental document for this plan has been completed. We have had numerous changes in design and direction. We also have gone back and forth with Caltrans a lot, as you know. Currently the contract amount that we have for this under this contract is $288,826.38. We to date through June 30th, they've expended $275,709.50 to be exact of the total contract. We have, they have requested additional service request and an increase in cost adjustment for not to exceed an additional $98,437. We have attached here their additional services that need to be provided and the cost associated with that. One of the main issues that has come up is Caltrans is requiring utility locating as part of the PS&E phase versus deferring it to construction. And that does require, there is hope that we can do it through ground penetrating radar. But if it can't happen, we're going to have to do potholing to identify the exact locations of the utilities. Daniel can talk to you a little bit more in detail on that. Again, like I said in the past, I'm not an engineer. I'm just trying to facilitate this project through. So included within the additional service request is a breakdown of the additional hours that they assume that they're going to have as they get through the utility part of it, as well as the additional client coordination and support time that they are looking at needing to finish the project. So there is also an additional $20,000 that has been included that in case we run into additional Caltrans coordination and pose additional requirements. Again, we've been going back and forth a lot with Caltrans, and I would assume part of this is because of the COVID, but also it's just the Caltrans process. Every phase that we've gone in, being new to Caltrans, I really didn't realize that it would happen this way, but different people look at the project at every level, and so it does get very cumbersome as you go through this process. So it does have a breakdown in here, and again, the additional total maximum fee is $98,437. Daniel, any questions you have regarding to the additional work and services included in here, he'll be happy to address and answer your questions, and he is the one that prepared that. So once we move forward, we have, the next step will be to finish up and get to the point where we can submit the revised 100% plans, finish up the PS&E phase, and request authorization for our construction funding. The funding for construction is basically coming through Darren through the transit dollars. Any questions on that, you can actually ask Darren. But this additional cost will also be funded through the Tuolumne County Transportation Council, not through the city's general fund, the additional cost. Staff is recommending that the council approve the amendment to the consultant service agreement with Kimley Horn, and to include the proposed additional services under the scope of work, and increase the total not to exceed amount payable under the agreement to $387,763.38. Thank you.
Okay, let's see, I guess we'll go to Daniel, is it last name Carly?
Carly, yes.
Yes, can speak a little more to this.
Sure. Thank you all for allowing us the opportunity to speak on it. Like Rochelle mentioned, we've incurred additional coordination and design time through the project. The design decision document for the design exceptions that we have is slowly moving through the process, but we are expecting the approval on that shortly. That was not part of our original agreement with the city at the beginning of the project, but we're working through that. There's been additional coordination and design on multiple items that were not anticipated at the beginning of the project, and has led to us spending the budget allocation that we previously had for getting to the point where we are. As Rochelle mentioned, the ground penetrating radar, GPR utility locating, is what we are proposing to start the utility locating with. This is significantly cheaper than the utility potholing to positively locate those utilities. And that all is part of the requirement for Caltrans's utility policy certification. This is basically to help the project clear utilities and to make sure that during construction there are not surprises that delay the duration of construction while utility conflicts are resolved, should they be found at that time. So that is why the and the policy did change a little bit, and they are enforcing the policy a little differently than they have in the past. So that is why this was not previously included in our agreement. Should the GPR not sufficiently locate the utilities to the satisfaction of Caltrans, that's why we've included that potholing task. And like Rochelle mentioned, that an additional 20,000 is kind of a contingency task as well, if the assumptions that we've made for finalizing the plans based on the comments that we've received to date on the 95% plans. We do anticipate additional comments, hopefully minor, so that we can wrap up the final bid plans and obtain the encroachment permit. The hours here are what we anticipate, like I said, for the finalizing the 100% plans and a subsequent final design submittal. And this is a not to exceed amount. So we are endeavoring as much as possible to finish this project as efficiently as we can, and hope to not come anywhere near that 98,000 should it be approved. Are there any specific questions, I guess, on any of the items there?
Councilmember Sudge.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, you will initially try to use the ground penetrating radar at the price of $3,400. And if that is not sufficient, then you'll use the potholing.
Correct.
So why can't you just, if you have to go to potholing, bill that $28,000 at that time? Why would, I don't know. I think that I would prefer that myself.
So Colette, that will slow down the process even farther, and we are bumping up to deadlines. So by approving it, if we don't approve it now as an alternative, then we have to come back to the council for an additional increase in the budget amount versus having the dollars approved, and then your staff will approve the process as it goes through.
I don't know. I guess I've never seen a contract work like this. It's, I don't know. I don't know why that delays things more than a day or two. I don't see why that.
A minimum of 2 weeks, and then he has to schedule it.
Well, he'd have to schedule it anyhow, right? If the GPR doesn't work, then he would have to schedule it. He wouldn't have scheduled it before he found out the GPR didn't work.
So what I'm saying is, Colette, that what would happen is if the ground penetrating radar does not work and Caltrans comes back to us, then we'd have to wait until we can schedule another, have it scheduled before the council again, before he can schedule the additional work, versus just the minute we got turned in, Caltrans said it's not enough, then we move forward with contracting to get the potholing done. So you would delay it by whatever time it takes to get it back before the council.
All right.
Any other council members have questions for Mr. Carley? Okay. Mary Rose, I do have one question before I guess we ask the rest of the council, and then I'll go to public comment. If, say, we reject this tonight, we reject this part tonight, in turn, what will happen?
So we have to remember that, you know, the monies that are funding this are coming from from TCTC. However, we have to also remember that, you know, we've put in a significant portion of staff time involved in this as well. And there could be the potential that the city of Sonora would have to pay back any portion of this project if the council decided that they did not want to move forward with this project. As of right now, and Rochelle, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we're at about $320,000 total with staff time included, invested into this project. So if you recall, you know, when we came before you in June with our budget and saying, you know, that we would have to make budget reductions due to the revenue loss, the city right now is not in a financial place to be able to pay back $320,000 if the council so chooses not to go forward with this project. And Darren Gorsky from TCTC can, you know, speak and address that in more depth, but I just want the council to be cognizant of the fact that there is the potential, if the council does not vote to continue on with this project, that it could be something that the city would have to pay back.
Yeah, Mr. Gorsky, could you speak to that? You're still on mute.
You're muted. There we go.
Here we go. Yeah, thank you, and good evening, City Council. Darren Gorsky, Executive Director of both the Tuolumne County Transportation Council and the TCTA, the Transit Agency. Keep in mind, it wouldn't be the first time that a project has had to pay back funding. I believe the first time I know of in Tuolumne County that happened was with the Greenlee Road extension, when that project did get environmentally cleared, and then the Board of Supervisors voted to not go forward with the project. They had to pay the federal funds back. The funding, our role in the funding is to program those funds in federal transportation improvement program to get the funds to go to the city to build the project. If you had to pay the funds back, and Caltrans will ultimately be the one that tells you have to do so or not, you would pay that back into the federal government, as I understand it.
Okay. Thank you.
Wouldn't that be to the state because Caltrans is not federal government?
I'm sorry, Mark, I didn't quite understand that question.
Caltrans isn't representing the federal government. Wouldn't we be paying that back to the state?
Caltrans actually does have delegated authority to represent the federal government on these, but they ultimately do go and check with federal officials to confirm that this kind of payback would be required. It's likely, in my opinion, that you will pay back.
Okay, I had just thought that because we are dealing with Caltrans on the project, that it was Caltrans money and not federal money. Doesn't make much difference.
It's federal money, Mark.
Yeah. Oh, okay, thank you.
Would any other council members like to speak to this before I move to public comment? Oh, Councilmember Sagestrom.
Is there anyone from Vision Sonora that's available to speak to whether or not this project has manifested itself as envisioned? I mean, I've only been on this is my third meeting, and I have to say, I'm not crazy about this project. And I would like to know from the Vision Sonora perspective, you know, if this is really what they envisioned.
So if I might speak to that, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, and then it appeared that we could move to public comment and then have
I had another question for staff as well.
Okay, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
So this Vision Sonora was in a lot of ways shepherded along mostly by Connie Williams, and she supported this project at every vote that we took on it. So while that I obviously can't speak for, I think that as the titular, well, not titular head, but a strong supporter of Vision Sonora, that her votes speak for her in that. And I had one other question for staff before we go along, and that was on one of the pages here, it shows the documents included are the 95% along with the amended contract. So is this effectively approving the 95% status as well? Or is that a separate vote that we would be taking later?
So the next time, so what you're approving tonight, or we're asking to approve, is the extension or the amendment to the contract. The next time you'll see the actual plans is when we go in for authorization to go to bid.
Okay, so effectively this is the 95% as well, because it will be 100% next time it comes to us.
Next time it comes before the council, then it will be the go out to bid. I will say that all the improvements that are included on the plan are what you guys approved previously.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Sudge?
So are we going to open this up to public comment, or are we supposed to be making our comments about this?
I'm going to open this. This will be opened up to public comment. It was just any council members that had questions before I opened it up to public comment.
And then we can ask our questions afterwards. Okay.
Absolutely.
I'll wait.
Okay, then I see no other council members that'd like to speak, so I will open it up to public comment.
And again, members of the public, if you would like to speak,
I see Mr. Michaels with, huh? Okay.
I was just going to suggest if they could use the feature so I can see clearly, if they can use the feature of raising your hand on the participant menu, but we can also see you waving your hand, but that way we can make sure that we're having everybody in order as well of who raised their hand first and so forth.
Excellent. Thank you. I see Mr. Michaels with his hand raised. Jeff, go ahead and speak, please.
Yes, hi. I haven't followed the last meetings to as much detail as I guess it was maybe about a year ago when this was brought up. And I just wanted to state, because I have both the Sonora Inn and the Roadway Inn, which are affected by the plan, the positive points that I view and how it affects the city, community, but also the business. Number one, when vehicles are making a right-hand turn on Washington Street, we know that it's illegal. They're not supposed to, but they do nonetheless go into that right. And it's not like a right-hand lane, but that area. So I know that creating kind of a little bit more of a bub, if you will, or area so that they don't do that would help us tremendously. We've had several big rigs hit the side of the building. We've had a lot of damage. Just the damage alone has been $50,000 in the last 2 years since I've had ownership. And I think it speaks to, you know, the fact that, of course, we want to protect our heritage buildings. Second point is, as I truly believe that all persons, regardless of their means to be able to have a private vehicle, should be able to take public transportation in a form of dignity. And what I mean by that is we know that a lot of people who are vulnerable, including those who have disabilities, rely on public transportation to get around. Currently, as I understand, the bus stops are not ADA compliant. People do not have a proper place with shade and shelter when they're waiting for a bus. And then I understand the budget concerns and the rest of that, but I do think that there are areas where there are clear improvements. And if this doesn't go through, how are you going to address the violations for ADA, for those passengers who want to take it? How are you going to address the fact that, you know, the building continues to get hit and that people are making right-hand turns when legally they're not supposed to? So, I mean, there's so many points to it that I think this plan is addressing that I give it my full support.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Any council members have any questions for Michaels? Okay, we will go to, I believe the next hand that was raised was Adelbert. Doug, could you unmute Adelbert? Adelbert.
I think Hannah's got the host controls right now, so.
Oh.
Hannah.
This is Delbert. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. This is Barbara Dressler. My statement, the proposal to remove 2 lanes and build bus islands on Stockton Street has dragged out far too long. The August 3rd City Council agenda has consultants asking for almost $100,000 more funding to total $373,000 to complete a 95% project plan from last October. City revenues are plummeting due to the COVID virus with no end in sight. So the city of Sonora has no excess revenue to throw at this project or any reason to continue a poorly conceived project with insufficient consideration of consequences. Remember how this project started. Jim Garaventa looked left and right from the dais and asked if anyone had a better idea than putting bus stops on Stockton, with almost no consideration of other options. Every stage of this project has been rushed by city staff saying it required immediate action, continually rammed forward to meet Caltrans funding deadlines. Darren Grossi of TCTC admitted that no one had surveyed the citizens who are using the transit system as to whether the location is convenient or even humane as an asphalt island in the road during the 90 to 100-degree days of summer. Safety considerations have been ignored again and again, putting pedestrians in another crosswalk within a few car lengths of downtown's main intersection, with 2 lanes eliminated at both crosswalks. Add the delivery trucks and vehicles that need to enter from Green Street onto Stockton with their views blocked by the platform structure, which is elevated in order to counteract the roadbed slope, without sufficient turning radius to clear the platform, which requires trucks pulling into the opposing lane. Then add to that the trucks with trailers turning from Washington onto Stockton, also pushed into the opposing lane to clear the extended corner pushout. Could there be a more nightmarish scenario for total gridlock and risking pedestrian safety? Cost overruns in construction of this project that will not be covered by grants are inevitable. This project will be the City of Sonora's equivalent of the Board of Supervisors Jail and Juvenile Justice Center budget shortfalls, running the city budget into deficits for years into the future. Absorbing the Green Street $275,000 project cost to date will seem cheap compared to likely cost overruns in the future that are not covered by grants. Mark Plummer last stated that fiscal responsibility was his reason for voting to continue the project to the 95% design. Fiscal responsibility now says that with an uncertain revenue stream and the city's future in jeopardy by COVID-19, nothing in this project justifies continuing this dangerous waste of taxpayer funds that will bankrupt the city budgets for years. Let the City of Sonora be the example of fiscal and safety accountability. We can stop this unacceptable project today and its future repercussions.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Ms. Dressler?
You'll have to figure out a way to raise your hand and let it know to somebody else.
Okay, Anna, can you unmute Lori Lehman?
Pro Tim had his hand up.
Oh, I did?
Do you
Okay.
have your to comment?
Go ahead, Mark.
Yes, since to some small degree, my vote was mischaracterized. I think this is a good project in and of itself, that improving our bus service, both internal for the county and then being able to take on larger buses with more tourists. That is supported by many of our merchants and by the Sonora Inn, Mr. Michaels. So I just wanted to clarify the record. It's not just because it would damage the city enormously. But on that note, that's also been slightly mischaracterized, because if we do go forward, we pay a modest amount. I think it's some $30,000 that we have in
To put it during the torrential downfall.
staff time. And that if we do not go forward, then we are on the hook for well over $300,000. So that is an either or decision where it will hurt the city to deny this project going forward enormously. And if we do go forward, basically all of the costs are covered by other entities.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I see that Lori Lehman also has her hand up.
Yes, Anne was just asking about how Vision Sonora felt about this or whatever. I've been on that committee since its inception. And just so you know, the background for the committee was originally better bus stops were in the design for Vision Sonora. They were originally thought to be on South Washington. But we got a lot of pushback from business owners there and said, you know, can you please consider something else? So we did come back to City Council with a couple of choices for locations, and City Council made the choice for the location where it is. The Vision Sonora committee did spend a lot of time and energy designing what we thought would be aesthetically pleasing bus stops and something that would be nice, historical for the location. A lot of the other things that happened since then, as far as the crosswalks and the island and all of that was created for this particular location, the Vision Sonora committee really had nothing involved in that. That all just had to come about by the process in working with Caltrans and the location. So I hope that helps you understand a little of the background from Vision Sonora's point of view. I understand everybody's thoughts about it. Personally, I think it would be great to have great bus stops, and I'd hate to see the city have to pay money back after all of this hard work, but I defer to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe it's Ms. Linehan, 5622991. I think that could be unmuted. Go ahead. I believe you're unmuted now.
Unmuted, I can talk?
Yes, yay.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations. You're eliminating parking spaces from downtown and created a traffic snarl, which is to boot, which is something the downtown doesn't need. I understand the issue that you're voting on today is whether to extend or expand this contract, not to get input on the design itself. But what I would urge the city council to do, I do have many, many questions, and I agree with everything that Barbara Dressler said, but I would urge the city council, before you take this action with Kimmel Horn, is to pause everything, because this project is in dire need of analysis by an independent traffic engineer. Actually, all of the Sonora Vision projects should be examined by a traffic engineer, because that's the lifeblood of our businesses in downtown. And when I talked to the folks at Kimmel Horn and asked who is your traffic engineer, they gave me the name of somebody who was actually a general engineer and not a traffic engineer. So I've also questioned to you, and I apologize, Mr. Carley, but I've told the city council before that they should consider or reconsider working with Kimmel Horn. So often they give us designs that don't match a turning radius for a logging truck or a bus. And it seems like they don't have an understanding of some of the Caltrans standards. So I question why the city continues to use Kimmel Horn. So I would say pause this project, get a good traffic engineer analysis of what they're selling you. Because they sold you a lot. It's not my words, it was Randolph Holder's, and he said I could tell anybody. They sold you a lot of pretty pictures. They gave that to the council. Everyone was really excited about it. But when it comes to concrete and trying to figure out how the traffic moves, they're not doing the job that they should. So I would say we need to pause this contract before we give them another $100,000 and look at it from the business traffic safety issue first. And if you want my opinions on some of the design, I'd be glad to give it to you, but I don't believe that this is the time that you want design input. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're just voting on the 98,000 for it.
I would say hit pause, get a traffic analysis. It's in dire need of that before you go forward. If that pot of money is going to be sitting there, great. If we're hitting a deadline, ask for an extension because we don't have that and we need that for our safety. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
I'm looking, Mayor, just to see if I can see anything. Again, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand. Delbert, I'm seeing that your hand is raised again. Are you wanting to speak again, or because we only allow once public comment?
I think it's David Morgan.
It's a different person at a Delbert. It's on the same computer, but a different person.
Okay.
So that would be allowed.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Morgan.
So, you know, we've been to a lot of the council meetings as this has progressed, and way back when we only owed $70,000, 2 or 3 members of the council said, we have to go ahead because we owe $70,000 and we'll have to pay it back. But you guys, you public people, don't worry. You'll get a chance to have your input later on. And then it got to $150,000, and they said the same thing. And now Mr. Gorsky and some of the staff are using what I think is blackmail, telling you that you can't turn this project down, which I think is a horrible project right through from the beginning. You can't turn it down because you owe all this money. But they don't say exactly that you do owe the money. They say possibly, maybe, we're not sure, we've seen it done before. I think that's just pure blackmail. Could either one of those people tell me how many people who have turned down, how many states, cities, counties that have turned down projects like this have been forced to pay back the money? I think they're just using blackmail to get this project railed through. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morgan, I also did want to recognize I did receive an email from you. I don't know if the rest of council received it. I just want to recognize that. So is there anyone else that would like to speak? I don't see anyone else.
I don't see anyone else, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, let's bring this back to the council for further discussion. Who would like to speak first? No, another not everybody go all at once. Oh, Mayor Pro Tem Plummer. Go ahead.
I think it's locked up. I think he's, there we go.
There we
Something
go.
locked up on my computer. Well, I think it deserves to be said that there has been a lot of input, and this is a project that is not going to please everybody in every respect. We did try and look at alternatives, as far as location, and someplace that you can take a full-size bus that would also be funded by a Caltrans project does not exist at this time. If we are going to support public transport and transportation and improve our access for anyone who needs ADA access and capacities, then we need something, and this is what's on the table. Maybe it's not perfect. I think it's a good project, and we need to go forward on it. Aside from the financial repercussions, which Mary Rose didn't say it was definitive, but it had always sounded, especially with Tim, that it was going to be something that we would owe pretty directly for the engineering, that if we refuse to go forward, that we would be on the hook for it. Also, if we want to have further projects with Caltrans or probably any other state-funded entities, we cannot afford to go back and forth and back and forth. We have approved this time and again at every level and stage of this process. The city council, I think, must build on what prior decisions have been made and that we go forward. And I will allow the time for everybody else to speak. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. Who else, what other council members would like to speak on this?
Not seeing anyone else jump in, I guess I'll go ahead and jump in. I do think it's a good project, and I'll tell you why. Right now, we have a bus stop that's non-ADA compliant and obsolete on Jackson, Washington Jackson. This is more centrally located to the business district in the center of town. I think it serves a lot more people at that location. I think the difference between this and the Washington Street site, I think there would have been more issues at the Washington Street site, Washington Church site than there will be at this one. Although, yeah, and I'll grant you, no project is going to be perfect because of our streets and how we're laid out and the narrowness and all that stuff. But I think this is a good project. I think it serves the community, even with the talk of how transit is going to change in the future. This will still be this is still the downtown of the largest city or the largest community population and business center in Tuolumne County. So I will say I disagree with some of the characterizations of some of the testimony earlier. The cost is not going to, it's federally funded through the state. It's not city money. That will be the extra 90,000 some odd is not city money coming out of city general funds. It comes from grant, and the project is grant funded, federal through the state. We've already spent almost, if not more than $300,000 on the project, including staff time. And that is regardless of whether the characterization of blackmail is true or not, which I don't believe. I think it's a good project. If that money has to be paid back, that's a huge amount for us to have to deal with as a small community and with a small budget. but other than that, like I said, I think it's a good project. It went through the Vision Sonora process. And I think you heard from Lori. I think Lori, preferred the Washington Street one, but when it came to decision time, it seemed that the Stockton Street was a better project. But it was part of the Vision Sonora process. Some of the projects that came out of that. I think that aside from being a good project for transit passengers, as well as yachts, as well as the tour buses that come into town, have a good spot downtown. I think we're also not only would we be liable for the money that's already been spent on the project, but we're already liable and continue to be liable for the non-ADA compliant stop that we have now. So on the whole, I think it's a good project, despite what some want to characterize it as. It serves our transit community. It serves our business community. We're on the cusp of approving the plans to have it built, and I think we should continue to do so.
Thank you, Jim. Councilmember Sutch.
Well, I've disliked this project from the beginning. There are certainly some changes that I think could help it. I think if you read the grand jury report, this is last decade's project. It's not a project for the future. We do not need a bus stop that is that long. And actually at the 65% meeting, that bus stop was referred to as being able to serve one 45-foot bus. And now we're saying it's one 45-foot bus. And correct me if I'm wrong about this, Darren, but now we're saying it's one 45-foot bus plus another smaller bus. That isn't necessary. There is nothing about our transit system that works for our rural community, and that is not a criticism of Darren's work. It's we have big buses that drive around empty, so there's nothing environmentally correct about this. I would approve this project if the westbound, the larger bus stop accommodated just one tour bus and not anything else. And Darren has said on more than one occasion that could be accommodated. And at the last meeting, the 65% meeting, that's how it was described. Also, I have serious problems about the danger of the eastbound bus stop without a crosswalk across that street. I think there is no way people are going to walk up to that crosswalk. There is no way. People will be crossing at a very dangerous place. And so I think we're kidding ourselves if we think we're providing good transportation for our community here. No one has even asked them, which is also, I consider that malpractice and making these kinds of big, expensive decisions. I also have, I looked at the plans that were sent to us with our packet. And I actually happened to watch our last couple meetings on this on video. There's a striped crosswalk across Stockton Street that was approved. At the last meeting, there was a striped crosswalk across the North Street crossing. And certainly there needs to be a crosswalk there. It does not need to be striped. And there was the crosswalk across Green Street on the southern side. On the last meeting was not striped. And we asked actually that that neither of those Green Street crossings be striped. They don't need to be striped. That is not a busy crossing. there are many much more busy streets in Sonora that have crosswalks that are not striped. Those do not need to be striped, and it just adds more unattractive busyness down there. You know, I mean, I think we shouldn't be taking these buses around Tuolumne County with 4 to 6 people in it. That's the average ridership. And because of that, we can't provide bus service that comes frequently enough for anyone to want to ride the bus. And also the Stockton Street is hot. It's like to sit out there and wait for a bus for over an hour, which is what the average wait is, I'm sure, is almost, you know, we shouldn't be thinking that we're being kind. You know, there's a much, and, you know, I would also approve this if we would leave the bus stop at Courthouse Square for people who chose to use that bus stop. Can we only have one bus stop in Sonora? That's not good service either. So I'm not sure when we're supposed to talk about the changes that we asked last time that are not reflected on this. We also asked very clearly that the southern bulb out on the Stockton and Washington Street corner be reduced. And we were told that they would look into that, but there's been no discussion about that. Did that conversation even happen? And most people at that meeting wanted that bulb out reduced.
Mayor, can we talk to the stuff that was addressed,
That's at this point all I have to say.
Yes, I was going to ask Ann if she had anything, and then yes, we'll go to that.
Yes, things were changed.
Right. Councilmember Sagestrom.
Okay, thank you. You know, I really came late to this party, and I mean, I'm listening to all the comments, and you know, it's seriously, to me, it's really, I respect Rochelle and all of the engineers that have been through this, you know, so many times, but it looks like a camel. I mean, it doesn't seem to me to really serve anything any better. Also, I'm extremely worried about funneling the traffic in Stockton Street to fewer lanes. I mean, I just, as Colette mentioned, this is a project of the past. I mean, are we looking at growth, or I just am like, what? This just seems like compounding problems to me. But I will look forward to hearing about the changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Rochelle.
Yeah, Daniel, I'm probably going to need your help on this, but I know that the bus that on the northern side, or I guess it's the northern side, there at Green and at Stockton Road, that was reduced as much as we were allowed to reduce it. Is that correct?
Yes, the bulb out, or the length of the overall improvements, is basically what it was.
We lost you.
Oh, he went to mute.
There, you're back.
I think I got muted. Somebody. So the bus stop itself, so the bus pad for where the bus will stop, accommodates one 60-foot bus. So it's a little bit longer. I'm trying to look at the length. I don't remember the length offhand, but we've reduced the bus stop itself to not accommodate the 2 buses there.
So that did occur based on the parameters that Darren had for how long he needed that reduced. We couldn't reduce it below that, correct? Is that right, Darren?
Well, and we also have the constraints of the curb ramp and the amenities that we need to provide, and where the bus, the ramp for the ADA compliance of the rear handicap ramp for the buses that are currently being used, that needs 12 feet. And so it's a very constrained corridor, as we all have discussed many times. So getting all of the improvements that we needed for those buses results in the plan that we have in front of us for that bus stop.
I don't know if you want to weigh in at all on that, Darren.
Yeah, this is the type of bus that we're looking at accommodating. It's a Yards tour bus coach. It's also what they use in the tour bus industry. And we reached out to Merced County Association of Governments, which oversees the yard service, and we used their standard template for their bus stops in this design with some modifications for some of the reasons that Daniel mentioned previously.
How long is that bus?
It's a 45-foot coach.
So it takes an extra 15 feet.
Yeah, so when you, think about it on each end, if you've got 7-8 feet on each end, that's barely more than social distancing these days.
So yes, we reduced it from the last plan that you've seen. The
So
other thing,
how big
the
is the
other,
last one? How long was it before?
it accommodated 2 buses before.
So it was 120 feet?
I think it's close to 100 feet.
Thank you.
So the bulb outs at the corner of Washington and Green, or Stockton and Washington, those bulb outs, they had landscaping in there before. All that was removed, and the bulb outs were reduced to accommodate the required ADA ramps. They were both reduced, correct, Daniel?
Yeah, the length of the ramp, so if we're talking the one by the Sonora Inn, the length going north on Washington was reduced, so it was shorter from the crosswalk. The bulb out itself going into the road, I think that was reduced a little as well, but a lot of that was driven by, the geometry there is driven by the truck turning templates to make sure that we can accommodate the design vehicles making that right turn with the off tracking. So there's not, as it's apparent for the damage that's been at that corner, there is not a lot of space there in the existing condition. And we've helped that some by also shifting over the lane line by reducing that, the receiving lanes on Stockton. Right now there's one lane from southbound Washington and one left turn lane from northbound Washington that Stockton receives. So having 2 lanes receiving at the intersection, you only ever have one stream of vehicles turning at a time. So we did run traffic analysis on that, and Caltrans reviewed those operations as well, and they concurred with the level of service provided with that lane reduction.
The bulb out at Stockton and by the Bank of America, we also reduced that down and
Yep.
shortened that as well, so that it did not affect the parking in front of Bank of America.
Correct.
And it also, were able to retain the parking spaces there as well, correct?
Yes, there's two spaces along the Bank of America side on Stockton.
Thank you. The crosswalks at Green Street that Colette's concerned about them being marked, would Caltrans allow unmarked crosswalks at that location as part of the
Are you
project?
talking about marked or striped? It's the
Striped.
striping that I have.
It's the striping.
Are we talking about the cross striping?
Yes. Yes, not the crosswalk itself. Obviously, there should be a crosswalk in both of those places.
Are they gonna care whether or not it's got the high visibility crossing markings on that?
No, I don't think they would. So the request is to remove the ladder striping within the crosswalk.
That was the council's request at the last meeting.
I think I misunderstood. I think at the last meeting we had them shown differently. So I interpreted the direction to make them consistent. So that's why they are all that way for Green Street intersection. Obviously the Washington intersection doesn't have the high visibility because it's signalized. But if it's the request of council to remove the striping within the crosswalks crossing Green Street, that shouldn't be a design change that Caltrans will have an issue with. I would recommend maintaining the ladder striping within the crosswalks crossing Stockton at this location, just because of the increased visibility for that higher volume of vehicles going down Stockton.
Stockton Street was never an issue. The council wanted the striping there, but they asked the striping be removed.
Well, Councilmember Such, you have watched that much more recently, but my recollection was that we wanted the highest level of safety possible, and that we did, in fact, that Daniel's recollection or understanding was consistent with it. If this would get you to support the project, I think that the council would be happy to work on that, but
I'm not going to say I'm going to support the project, but the council direction at the last meeting was to, the plans at the last meeting had striping on the northern Green Street crossing, but had no striping at the southern Green Street striping. So Daniel is correct that we wanted them to be the same, but the council direction was to remove the striping at the northern Green Street crossing.
I think it was just a misunderstanding, Colette.
It's okay. I'm just bringing up what
As you can tell, we've tried very diligently to listen to you guys and revise these plans.
and that's obvious, and we thank you for that.
Thank you.
So the main thing we're talking about tonight for this is approving the 98,000 for the to basically include the additional services under the scope of work. That part, the design part, Colette, I do appreciate you bringing that part up about the striping because I do think it is important. But I wanted to ask, I just want to make sure we were coming back to this. I wanted to ask if there were any other council member comments before I said anything. So it doesn't look like there is. I think most know how I feel about this project. I'm not a fan of it, and I know I represent a good bit that aren't fans of the project either. I do believe that comments that were made about feeder lanes and that sort of thing is absolutely correct. My problem is that we're $320,000 into it. I know myself and Councilmember Such had voted against it in the past several times, especially going through everything that we're going through right now. And from the research I have done, I've asked, I've read, I've looked around, we would have to pay that back. I'm not worried about anyone trying to hold my feet to the fire. I've done the research myself. Again, I'm not a fan of this project. I do like the bulb outs, and I am a big fan of public transportation, but I don't like some of the things it gets rid of. But again, I've got to support the amendment to the contract. I don't like it, and I agree with many of the things that David Morgan and others have said, but I can't see us getting put on the hook for at least $320,000 to pay back. We simply could not afford it, and we would have to eliminate jobs. Or we're in a tough enough spot as it is. So I mean, I'll vote to amend this reluctantly, but I can't see us having to pay back $320,000. But I don't like this project, and again, I represent a lot of people who don't. So that's my 2 cents. So, Mayor Pro
Mayor,
Tem,
you entertain a motion.
gonna ask for that.
I would like, because I believe this is a good project, forward-looking, that will help our city. I move to approve the amendment to the consultants and services agreement with Kimley Horn and Associates. And
second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Oh, looks like Ann has a.
What number of votes do you need to approve this?
Majority.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Mayor Hawkins,
Reluctantly, aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Plummer,
Aye.
Councilmember Garaventa,
Aye.
Councilmember Such,
No. No.
and Councilmember Sagerstrom.
No.
Passes 3-2.
Okay, so under new business, item number 4 is consideration of authorization to advertise for public bids for year 2020 to 2021 City of Sonora Street Striping Project. Mary Rose.
So I'm actually going to have our city engineer speak in regards to this project, but I just want to remind the council that the SB1 or our SB1 gas tax projects was brought before the council on June 1st again, and that resolution of those projects was approved by the council. And so with the approval of those SB1 projects, we are now asking for authorization to go out to bid based on that resolution. And our city engineer, Jerry, it looks like he's on the line with us. If he could please explain a little bit more in detail about this project for the council. So, yeah, there he is. You're unmuted.
Oh.
Oh.
He's unmuted, but we can't hear him.
Jerry, we can't hear you. If your mic.
Do you have a mic plugged in somewhere, or are you using your laptop, or no? Well, okay, now try it. We can't. It shows that you're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
Okay.
I bet it's a setting on your laptop.
So in your agenda packet, Jerry, I'm so sorry, and I'm going to ask Rochelle if she's still on the line, as she oversees Public Works as well. In your packet,
Jerry, just nod up and down if I'm saying the right thing, okay?
Go ahead, Rochelle. I want to refer the council members to their packet. It has a list of the projects that we're asking authorization for to go ahead and go out to bid for the striping. And Rochelle,
Sure.
if you want to get into a little bit more detail.
We will. So I'm going to watch Jerry's head as I do this. So as you know, we have our SB1 money, and we actually passed a resolution, and striping was included as part of one of the projects. So Jerry went out, him and Mike, they did a lot of work on looking at the striping needs of the city and the various roads that were included within that resolution. He also looked at, I know he talked to the county and others about the best approach to striping, looking at whether we should do the stop lines as well as the center lines and the fog lines and everything, or just look to Public Works to continue to look at the stop bars and the crosswalks and stuff. He also looked at whether painting was an option, which is a lot cheaper, but it also requires to be done annually. We don't have the capability of doing that with staff. So we needed to look at something more of a long term. And so that, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought somebody, am I right so far, Jerry?
Mm-hmm.
I know. Okay. So he is proposing that we go out to bid with the thermoplastic and just the longitudinal striping of 4-inch double yellow center line, 4-inch white line, and right edge fog lines, and 8-inch channelization lines at turn lanes and intersections. So that would all be included with this. Then the crosswalk stop bars and other pavement markings, we would use Public Works crews for that. And we've had some conversations on looking at doing some type of a torch down or something for that as well, so that it lasts longer. So that was some of the conversations. So we are, based on that, he has included in the packet his recommended streets to be done in Exhibit A and Exhibit B. And the exhibit we included the map of the city to show where this would occur, and it's all marked in there. He also has the striping project inventory that's attached, talks about the length and the different types of line, center line, fog line, and channelization lines that need to be done for each street, and as well as the linear feet that need to be done. And we also have the notice inviting bids that we'll put out, and then we'll work through how we're going to do the bid opening, because we haven't had to do one of those yet through COVID. So we've had a couple conversations about that as well, on how we're going to move forward. So what we're asking for tonight is the authorization to go to bid so we can get moving on this project, and move forward and get somebody on board to do the work for us. If you have any questions, hopefully I can answer them.
And of course, I do have a question that you probably you may not know. So we talked about doing the paving, or not paving, just regular paint striping only lasts about a year. How long does the thermoplast usually? It's about 10 years.
Is it 10 years? 4 years.
Four to five. About 5 years, Jerry?
10. I think he's saying 10. We just can't see
So
his hands.
And how much significantly more is it to, I mean, is it on a scale of like 4 or 5 times what paint would cost, or is it higher than that? About, I can't.
I think about 4 times as much.
Yeah, okay.
About 4 times. And the issue is, Jim, we're getting, because Mike talks to me a lot about this, we get complaints regularly from our citizens regarding the striping. And so then they go out, so that will solve that, because otherwise they're just going to have to, every year, then people are going to continue to complain.
So if it costs 4 times as much as regular paint and lasts 4 times as long, it's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same, except for staff time that you're doing every year instead of 5 years. So it actually, sounds like it's a better deal. So
it is.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I had.
Any other council members?
Jerry's saying something.
Poor Jerry's trying to say stuff.
Jerry, you
can't understand him.
Put us in the chat or something, Jerry.
Oh, goodness.
Jerry?
Are there any other council members that would like to speak? Councilmember Such.
I just want to thank Jerry. I think this is a really great presentation. I actually think striping is really boring, and I loved reading this. So thank you. It was really complete. I have a great sense of what's going on here, and I obviously would support this, but just thanks for this presentation.
Anyone else? Okay, is there any public comment on this? Don't raise everybody's hands at once. Okay, Mary Rose, do you see any public comment?
I don't. In the participant window, I do not see any public comment or raising of hands.
Okay, then we'll bring it back to the council.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to authorize to advertise for public bid on the fiscal year 2021 City of Sonora street striping project.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Garaventa and a second by Councilmember Such. Before I ask for the vote, I would like to say, Jerry, like I said, your fingerprints, your handprints, your hard work are all over the city, and this is just another bit of proof to show. So thank you for all your hard work. Okay, roll call vote, please, Mary Rose.
Mayor Hawkins.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Plummer.
Aye.
Councilmember Garaventa.
Aye.
Councilmember Such,
Aye.
and Councilmember Sagerstrom.
Aye.
5-0, Mayor.
Passes 5-0. That's great. Okay, so under unfinished business, because we placed this to the end, informational item to discuss Governor Newsom's executive order N-33-20, requiring all citizens to stay at home unless needed to maintain operation of essential critical infrastructures. Mary Rose.
So this is just kind of be a brief update today. We haven't had a lot of movement as to whether or not we've ended up on the state monitoring list. Obviously, we've seen the cases rise in the county of Tuolumne. We are still waiting to see whether or not we end up on that monitoring list. You know, there are a number of factors that put us on the monitoring list besides that monetary limit of 100 persons per, or excuse me, 100 cases per 100,000 population. So again, we're not quite on that monitoring list that I know of yet, or I've heard of yet. But I would encourage all of our residents, though, to still continue to observe all of the safety guidelines that the state and our public health officer has put out as far as our social distancing and our facial coverings in public, as well as when you're inside buildings. And I just wanted to make one comment. I've heard a couple of concerns from the public in regards to an article that was put out about grant money available to businesses for PPE reimbursement. If the council, if you're aware, there was an article that was placed. We have been in contact somewhat with the county in regards to this. The county, as everybody is aware, is receiving quite a bit more money in COVID dollars than the city. They're actually receiving about $5 million in CARES Act funding through the state. The city, if you recall from our last, I think, previous two meetings, we're receiving about $58,000 total for COVID monies as of right now. What was put out by the county was that they would be allowing businesses to submit an application to public health to ask for PPE, or personal protective equipment, reimbursement of monies that they've had to put out for their business to allow for the public to come in and for their employees. However, they have not allowed incorporated city businesses to participate in that grant revenue reimbursement, which I think is a shame. We have to remember that that CARES Act money is for the total county jurisdiction and not just for the unincorporated area. So I would urge businesses, if you would like to receive grant money for PPE, if you would please reach out to public health to express your frustration on that, or to contact your District 1 board member, Sherry Brennan, because we need to make sure that CARES Act money that is going towards our businesses still remain within the jurisdiction of Tuolumne County. And we just want to make sure that our businesses here in the city, we are not privy to a $5 million grant like the county of Tuolumne is, that they're being taken care of as well as the unincorporated businesses.
Can we add, we're going to look into the legality of it too, because
we lost
and
you.
That's all. And that's all I have for an update, and I can answer any questions at this point.
Doug, we kind of lost you at one point.
Oh, I just said we're going to look into the legality of it as well. Because I'm fairly certain that it's not.
So we want to look into the legality of whether or not the county can justifiably
exclude the city. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jim.
Well, I just wanted to ask Mary Rose. I mean,
I got one of those.
Were you turned down, or from the county? Have you had conversations with the county, or?
I've reached out to a couple of different departments. Doug, we're having a hard time understanding you. What I have been told, it was a decision by the Board of Supervisors to only designate the grant revenue to the unincorporated area businesses. So that is the information I have been received. I can continue to, like I have been, trying to ensure that those monies for grant reimbursement, because our businesses are putting out a lot of money to ensure that, you know, they've got tables outside, they've got umbrellas, they've got all of those PPE requirements, the masks, the gloves, you know, they are using disposable menus. There's a lot of things that they've been putting out money towards to ensure that they're following guidelines. And we have a fair amount of restaurants and businesses, obviously, in our city that have, you know, that would I'm sure would appreciate a $2,000 grant reimbursement. So that's why I'm saying I urge constituents, businesses to reach out to their board rep. But I will continue on our end as well to ensure that our city businesses have some sort of reimbursement as well. Because let's not forget, you know, we took action from the council that the public health officer is also the city public health officer, and these grant revenues, you're petitioning the public health department for these grant revenues. So we want to make sure that our city businesses are taken care of as well.
Exactly.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Mary Rose, I have a question here regarding hotels and bed and breakfasts, etc., where at least some of our bigger hotels have eliminated half their rooms so that it would be every other room that was occupied if they even had guests. Would that empty space hypothetically qualify as well as a COVID-related expense?
I think right now what they're looking at is specifically PPE. So what you're putting out to purchase personal protective equipment at this juncture.
Okay.
So we, as it happens, there is a board meeting tomorrow, and at 9 o'clock in the morning it starts, and there's open communication. So at the very beginning of the meeting, it might be an opportunity to let the Board of Supervisors know, city businesses and constituents, to let the Board of Supervisors know that they're also county members and would like to do that. It's at 9 a.m. and you'd have to look it up on the website how to log in and what phone number to call, but that's a quick opportunity for people to get their voices heard at the board level tomorrow morning, 9 a.m.
So I don't know how many are listening, and but you know, I'll make a couple things clear. First of all, the counties, I believe their line to the Board of Supervisors is 209-533-5521. I would recommend asking for Supervisor Brennan and, you know, asking her why the city is not part of the county when it comes to this. District 1 is, Jim, you may know this, roughly about 9,500 people. I believe so.
That's about right. The districts are divided in fifths, and we're about 50 to 55,000 people. So it's close to 10,000.
Okay. And then with that, the city is about 4,900 people. So District 1, half of District 1 per se is the city of Sonora. Yet the city of Sonora is not being represented on the county level, at least when it comes to this issue. I'm sure I'm going to get several emails from a couple supervisors now about that, but I'm going to make it pretty clear. We've got 2 really good responsive supervisors on the Board of Supervisors who I can call at any time, and we've got 2 to 3 others that will not take a call from any of us. So let me make this clear. Our city businesses are part of the county, and many of the owners of these city businesses actually live in different districts in the county. So I would recommend not only getting a hold of our District 1 supervisor, but actually their supervisor over their district that they live in. You know, this is just unacceptable. I think there's some legality to this too, Doug, but if we're supposed to work together, we need to work together. And as I keep saying, we got to get through this. We back each other up, law enforcement wise, fire wise, other things we do together. Why the slap in the face here? I don't understand. So we've got some downtown businesses that are really hurting. I talked to one business owner, and again, $2,000 might be a drop in the bucket, but it may be a reimbursement that may make it so they can make the mortgage payment this month and feed their kids. So why the county would want to act like this, I don't understand. And I would love to hear from, our District 1 supervisor. I won't, but I would love to hear why she would vote to exclude the city, which is her own district. That's really all I have to say. It angers me.
Hello, Mr. Mayor.
So would anybody else like to speak? Okay, I take this one to the public also, correct, Mary Rose?
Yes, sir.
Is there any member of the public that would like to speak?
Any member of the public, if you'd like to speak, press *9 if you're using your phone, or use the raise your hand function if you're using a computer, tablet, or smartphone. And Mayor, I see Jerry's hand has gone up.
I just
We'll
want to
see if he
check
has
to
any
see
audio.
if this is working now.
Hey!
I figured it out as an engineer. All I had to do was bang the cable. That's all I wanted to say.
All right.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, I'll bring it back to the council. Would anybody else like to make any comments? Okay, so I'll just say it again. The number is 209-533-5521 and ask why the city is not part of the county. And then also, I don't have the email addresses, but I would encourage everyone to email. Those emails will sit in the boxes and then they can read them and read them over and over if they would like. But the city is part of the county and we need to be treated like that. So that's all I have on that. So next order of business is item number J, which is communications. We have none. K is council and department head reports. I'll try not to forget anybody this time. Okay, so we'll go to Finance Director, Mr. Gorsky. Is he still here?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Our Community Development Director, Rochelle Kellogg.
So the only thing I'd like to say is last week my mom had her hip replaced. She's going to be 81 here coming up at the end of this month, and she's doing great. And it's we grow them hardy. She grew me hardy too, so it's nice to see her up and around. So that's my only thing for tonight.
That is awesome. Is our fire chief on? Fire chief?
Yes,
Amy
can you
Newton?
hear me?
Yes.
Can you? Yeah, everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to report, for those that haven't heard, we did have a structure fire over off of Sonora Avenue behind the fairgrounds off of Southgate on Saturday. All the occupants were out of the house at the time, but we did have a fatality with a dog not making it through the fire. So my condolences go out to our resident that lost her dog. Me being a dog lover, I completely understand that, and I had to step away a couple of times because it was very, very emotional. So my heartstrings were pulled, and my thoughts really go out to her and her family. Unfortunately, her house was completely destroyed. And so they're going to have to rebuild as well. So hopefully the community can reach out their hands of help to them in this crisis with everything else that's been going on. Also, I just wanted to tell you that your firefighters did an excellent job. The fire did extend into the wildland, and they were able to quickly stop the forward progress and contain it to the one house and the surrounding vegetation on that house. Also, we do have several fires burning up and down state of California. Largest one right now is happening in Riverside, San Bernardino area. And we did have a request to send out an EMT to that fire for firefighters that have been injured or experiencing heat exhaustion. So we did send out one of our personnel down this morning to the Apple fire down in San Bernardino. So otherwise, that's the only thing I have to report tonight.
Thank you. Police Chief Vanderweel, is he still on? Oh, yeah, there he is.
Yes, nothing tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, thank you. City Attorney Douglas White.
Nothing more, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. City Administrator Mary Rose.
Yes, I do have something to report out. Last week, Chris Gorsky and myself met with MuniCode to start implementation of our new agenda management system. So hopefully by our first meeting in September, fingers crossed, or at least in September, we will have a more paperless agenda management system that will bring us up to speed with technology and going forward to be able to manage our meetings better. So I'm really excited about that. And it's great working with Chris to try to really improve the city on a lot of our technology projects. And that's what all I got.
Excellent. That is awesome to hear. Okay. Councilmember Sagestrom.
Oh, well, I've been thinking through this whole process. I just wanted to voice again my appreciation for the city administration, Rochelle and Mary Rose, and for helping to bring us all up to speed on all these projects, doing special meetings. It's been very helpful. If I'm not always in agreement, I at least am well informed, and I really appreciate that. And, helping me move forward to work with the city. And I attended with Colette today, my first offsite meeting to work on a small project with the funding the City of Hope toilets, so porta potties. So we'll see how that goes. So anyway, just that is all I have to report for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Such. Oh, you're muted.
So yeah, Ann and I did have as Ann said, we had a meeting to find some additional funding for the porta potties and the Camp Hope. So that went really well, I think, and I'll know more in the next couple of days, and we'll be able to report back at the next meeting. Just about the social equity task force. I just I liked a few of the things that I liked everything that Nikki Coleman said earlier tonight about just coming up with a deadline for the applications, actually expanding that committee to 9 people from 7. So we'd have 7 community members on that committee. I just think there are so many good people out there who are interested. It would be a shame not to be able to add them. And also just, and maybe Jim, you and I can meet with Mary Rose this week. I can work around your schedule and kind of make those decisions, and also come up with a process by which we, if we have more than 5 community members, if we have 7 community members, perhaps instead of all of us just sort of individually appointing someone, we could just review all of those applications and make that decision as a council. But maybe Jim, you and I can meet with Mary Rose and just sort of, work out something I'm not thinking, that I haven't thought about with that. I would like to get this task force moving because there's still a lot of energy out there for it, and I don't want that to die. So that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Garaventa.
Just a couple of things. Well, yes, and I would like to meet with Colette with you and Mary Rose on that. That'd be great. Just 2 things for me. One is that 2 meetings. One that was canceled, the TCTC. I probably already said that, but we didn't have TCTC this month. And the other was the Visitors Bureau meeting. A lot of the talk there was on the TOT tax, and mostly directed toward the county, because I don't think we had at that time had really discussed that we were going to do it, look into doing it with the county. But one other thing that came up was the Airbnb tax and how that is administrated via city versus county. And they're, obviously they would like it to be the same. And I have talked with Tim in the past, has tried, and Mary Rose has tried as well to get Airbnb to at least acknowledge us. That to the crux of the problem is listing on their websites when they try to sell their rooms. In the county, this tax is included, and the city it's not, so they have to add on at the end, and it's an issue with them. So that also came up again at the meeting. Other than that, I have nothing else to report.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Plummer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I won't make this last too long, but I've had a couple of merchants ask if the council couldn't consider limiting some type of ordinance that would limit amplified music on Washington Street, that it has been disruptive to some of our newly outside oriented restaurants and other merchants who can't escape. And if we could look at that sometime soon, they would appreciate that if there's more than just me interested in it. So, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess I'm last. It's an interesting feeling. Anyway, I think most of you know that did a radio interview. I'm very proud of this city and I'm very proud of this council. Jim, I really admit it. I had some big shoes to fill, and I know how you felt because you had big shoes to fill. And I'm just thankful to be here, and thankful I get to raise my children and have a great marriage in this wonderful little city of ours. And that's all I have for tonight. So meeting is adjourned at 8:20.
Bye, Ann. Bye, Colette. Bye, Mark.
Everybody.
Bye, Jim.
Good night,
Bye, Matt.
everyone.